Chapter 560. Yi Changqing paced back and forth anxiously. When he spoke, he wasn't polite to the southern chief, who he had always respected. If something really happens to Zhuo, how could the southern chief not know how big of a loss it would be? There are some geniuses that are worth protecting at all costs. When Xing Tian's face was gloomy as he said, "Perhaps the southern chief has his own considerations?" "We don't know the southern chief's considerations." Yi Changqing pondered. His expression became more and more determined as he said lightly, "But I'm sure that Zhuo can't die. No matter what, he can't die. This time, I'm afraid that Chief Nan is planning to use Xiaoduo as bait. But isn't the weight of this bait a little too heavy?" When Xing Tian said thoughtfully, "The Flaming Sun scripture that Xiaoduo cultivates originally belonged to the southern chief. It's impossible that the southern chief doesn't know the value of Xiaoduo. There must be something we don't know." Yi Changqing was stunned. He also pondered for a while, but he still said firmly, "Even if the southern chief knows, this is not feasible. With Xiaoduo's current strength, if he goes up against the experts on the other side, he will die prematurely. No matter what, Xiaoduo cannot die. Even if the whole Hidden Dragon High Martial School is sacrificed, Xiaoduo cannot die." Yi Changqing said fiercely, "Xiaoduo is a seedling that has the potential to grow up to the level of the flood which in the future. Even if the Hidden Dragon High Martial School is lost, as long as Xiaoduo can grow up smoothly, it will be worth it. Both of us will go. Bring a few more people and let old Xiang stay behind to look after the house." Yi Changqing decisively said, "We will bring 10 of our old brothers over. In addition to the Shi clan's younger sister-in-law, Old Cheng, Zhan Xiaofei, and the others who are hiding in the shadows, we have basically already transferred all of the Hidden Dragon High Martial School's high-end battle strength over. If this still doesn't work, then we might as well die together over there. We don't have to worry about anything, and we'll be able to save ourselves a lot of trouble." When Xingtian nodded slowly, "All right, then let's set off immediately." Yi Changqing could not wait any longer. However, he soon realized that before he could finish his sentence, when Xingtian had already disappeared from his sight. "This brat is actually more anxious than me. It's hard for him to pretend to be so calm. I actually didn't see any flaws just now." After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a group of more than 10 people quickly flew out of the Hidden Dragon High Martial Academy. When Xingtian had been suppressed for so long that he was about to explode. Now that he was finally out, he was in a great mood. "Boss, why did you let the famous Yang Quanren watch the house this time? When it comes to battle formations and killing, he is the real expert among us brothers." When Xingtian smiled, "Aren't you afraid that letting him watch the house will cause trouble instead? With such a fiery temper, I wouldn't be surprised if he directly killed someone in the school. That was then, and this is now," Yi Changqing said indifferently. "Previously, we needed to be patient and let them go. We wanted to catch the big fish in the long run. Of course, we needed to leave the experienced and prudent people to watch the house, so that old Xiang's temper won't ruin the whole plan. But this time, we are going out to face a life and death crisis. If we all die, then only old Xiang is left in Hidden Dragon High Martial Academy. The biggest possibility is that he will lose his mind in grief and anger and will not care about anything else. He will take revenge and kill everyone. That will be even better. Since we are going to die, then there is no need to be patient anymore. That's why we need old Xiang to watch the house now." Yi Changqing said indifferently, "Another reason is, this time we are going to help with Xiaoduo. Maybe, as you said, the southern chief really has other plans. Then we, who are coincidentally there, need to constantly assess the situation and determine the right time to act. We must act rashly to avoid ruining the southern chief's plan. And with old Xiang's fiery temper, if he can't stand it, he will act and ruin the whole plan. So, this time, old Xiang watching the house is the best arrangement." Yi Changqing smiled meaningfully. "So, no matter how you look at it, old Xiang must watch the house this time." When Xingtian laughed heartily, "Otherwise, you would be the headmaster. None of us are headmasters. You have such penetrating insight, deep thoughts, and cunning wily old foxes. We can't compare to you." A bearded man behind him laughed and said, The most sinister person is the most suitable person to be an official. The hearts of officials are all dirty. Everyone was laughing so hard that they were rocking back and forth as they ran. In this battle, enchanting did not do any pre-battle mobilization. There was no need. There was no need at all. For this group of old brothers who had come from the battlefield, life and death were just trivial matters. Compared to doing something meaningful, life and death were not worth mentioning. From a certain point of view, this group of people were the true desperados that the southern chief, who was being grumbled endlessly by Yi Changqing, was now frowning and pacing back and forth in his office. He was following in Headmaster Ye's footsteps. Well, no, he had been pacing for a long time. When Sung's plan started, he was burning with anxiety. Every moment, he was suffering. He paced anxiously even earlier than Headmaster Yi. But he did not want others to know. No, I have to go and take a look. I'm worried about this. Minister Nan's super long and strong legs were moving back and forth like a windmill. After thinking about it, he really felt that he had to go and take charge to ensure that everything was safe. Chief, in the office, another person did not know whether to laugh or cry. This plan is to beat them at their own game. Everything is going perfectly, and everything is under control. But if you go now, you might alert the enemy. I shouldn't be the one to remind you of this. Minister Nan frowned, his face full of uneasiness. I'm still worried. There's a 1 in a million chance. But the current situation is that Master Yu doesn't want you to go. That person stopped him with a bitter face. He's afraid that you'll go. So he specifically called to give the order. His attitude is obvious. Minister Nan's heart was in a mess. He cursed, that bastard. How would he know? The other person's gaze was fixed. Since when did Minister Nan dare to curse the Heavenly King of the Right? If the Heavenly King knew about this, he was afraid that this beating from the chief would be very painful. Chief, didn't you specifically call to tell those people from Hidden Dragon High School not to make a move? Should they stay calm? Why are you? The deputy chief was very confused. You already told others to stay calm. Why are you the one who can't stay calm? What kind of logic is this? Could it be that you have a mouth to talk about others, but not yourself? Minister Nan's heart was in a mess. His brows were knitted together. What do you know? Minister Nan reached out and rubbed his face. You Dantian, you better not go overboard this time. If you go overboard, you'll get me killed. If anything happens, I'll definitely drag you down with me. This guy thinks he's so great just because he's the Heavenly King of the Right? Isn't this just going overboard? And it's going overboard. The deputy chief didn't dare to say anything else. It was a sin to even hear such words. Sigh, how would you know that there's something fishy about this? Let me tell you, if this matter isn't handled well and there's a slip-up, Yu Dantian will probably lose his life. Minister Nin looked up and sighed. Then he said in a sad voice, if Yu Dantian dies alone, then so be it. But it'll implicate me. I'll also lose my life. It's not that bad, it's not that bad. The deputy chief felt that he had to say something to comfort him. From the looks of it, we beat them at their own game and lured the snake out of its hole. The entire plan was a success. How could it be a failure? He was puzzled. This Xiao's plan had failed. Even the Heavenly King of the Right could lose his life? Who was he trying to scare? Even a 3-year-old child knew that this was completely impossible. Sigh. What do you know? Minister Nan had said the same words, what do you know, 18 times today. His ears were getting calluses. Chief, what's done is done. The deputy chief reminded him weakly. What he meant was that now that the plan was set, there was no point for him to go over. I know. Minister Nan paced around like a trapped beast. He took out his phone and wanted to send a message. However, he glanced at the deputy chief and directly chased him out. You can leave now. The deputy chief was pushed out of the office with a dumbfounded expression. He watched as the office door was slammed shut. The deputy chief's nose was almost flattened. In the office, Minister Nin took out his phone and searched for a number that he had not seen in a long time. He wanted to call it, but after thinking about it, he did not. Instead, he sent a message. Now that the plan was already in progress, it should be. All right. Cough, cough. Yu Dantian used with Xiao Duo as bait to fish in Fenghai. This plan is huge and involves a lot of people. Heavenly King Yu was stubborn, and I could not persuade him otherwise. However, Heavenly King Yu had promised that he would ensure the safety of Zhuo Xiaoduo. If there were any mistakes, he would bear all the responsibility. The editing was complete. Then he thought about it carefully and felt that he could get out of this mess. As for you, Don Tian, what does it have to do with me whether you die or not? He checked it carefully a few times. Then, he changed Zhuo Xiaoduo to Xiao Duo Yu to show his closeness. After he could not persuade him otherwise, he added many times. Thus, it became Yu Don Tian Yu Xiao Duo as bait to fish in Fenghai. This plan is huge and involves a lot of people. Heavenly King Yu was stubborn, and I could not persuade him otherwise. However, Heavenly King Yu had promised that he would ensure the safety of Xiao Duo Yu. If there were any mistakes, he would bear all the responsibility. After that, he read it carefully again and added, Xiao Duo Yu has improved a lot. He is very obedient. After reading it 3 times, he finally pressed the button to fire. He felt that there was phlegm in his throat that he could not cough out. However, after coughing twice, he did not feel better. His face was no longer red and was slightly pale. Ding dong. The message was replied instantly. However, there was only one word in reply. Haha. Sweat the size of soybeans appeared on Minister Nan's face. He hurriedly grabbed his phone and replied, I tried to persuade him otherwise many times, but you Don Tian was stubborn. Fire. Ding dong. Another reply. Your brother Zhuo is sleeping. Don't send messages if there's nothing else. Begging for votes. That's all for today. Chapter 561. It's over. As soon as he saw this sentence, the face of the powerful chief of the southern region immediately turned yellow. His fingers turned into a blur as he typed, Sister-in-law, how are you? Don't worry, sister-in-law. Little Duo Yu is fine. I promise. Ding dong. She replied instantly. I told you not to send messages. Are you blind? Chief Nan looked at this message and didn't dare to move for a long time. He maintained the posture of holding his phone with his body bent over for a full minute. He felt his breathing become rapid, his temples were throbbing, and his eyes were unfocused. After a minute, he lost his balance and sat on the ground with a plop. Cold sweat broke out all over his body. The ground was wet in an instant. It looked as if Chief Nan had peed himself. Dead, dead, dead. I'm dead this time, Chief Nan muttered to himself. His eyes were glazed over. He had sent a message to inform his father, but his mother was notified instead. This kind of result made Southern Chief have the urge to die. He knew better than anyone that if this message had been sent to Zhuo Changlu, there might have been some leeway. However, if it had been seen by Wu Yuding, it would be 1,000 times worse than if it had been sent to Zhuo Changlu. In this world, there was nothing scarier than a mother's anger. It has nothing to do with me. It really has nothing to do with me. Chief Nan looked at the ceiling speechlessly. You Don Tian, you son of a bitch. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. The Heavenly King of the Right was still sitting with his legs crossed. He held his phone and sipped his tea from time to time. Looking at the report, his heart was filled with satisfaction. This operation was worth it. He didn't expect that Xiao Duo would go to Fenghai and catch so many big fish in such a short time. This kid's seniority is really high. He's in the same generation as me. Sigh, his luck is really incomparable. His reincarnation skills are really good. He's upside down. Others are working hard to make a living, but he's living for the rest of his life. Yu Don Tian was sincerely envious of someone. At this moment, his phone rang. Yu Don Tian glanced at it and was immediately alerted. It was a message from Department Head Nan. Let me tell you some good news. Good news? The Heavenly King of the Right was a little suspicious. What good news could you possibly have? Could it be that the big fish had been caught? So he sent a message over excitedly. What's the good news? Ding dong. Nan Fong immediately replied. Zhuo doesn't know about this yet. The Heavenly King of the Right smiled. It was good that he didn't know. Hence, he replied, well done. I've always known that you're reliable. I'm not worried. Ding dong. Mayor Nan replied instantly. But if sister-in-law finds out? At this moment, the Heavenly King of the Right was stunned. His first thought was, huh? What's sister-in-law? The second thought was, are you fucking Nan Zhengqian trying to take advantage of me? His third thought was his entire body felt cold. His fourth thought was, this Nan guy has harmed me. He actually reported it to Annie instead of Uncle Zhua. These were two completely different things. He jumped up from the chair with a bang, almost without thinking. He immediately made a phone call. Really? Mayor Nan Fong's voice was a little gloomy. Really? Holy shit. The Heavenly King's heart skipped a beat. He said anxiously, the thing that we conspired together. How did you? He couldn't continue. 100,000 goat-like mythical beasts were galloping in his heart. Over the phone, Mayor Nan Fong's voice was very nervous. Don't slander me. Who conspired with you? I didn't know about this at all. Yu Dongtian's vision darkened for a moment. Suddenly, he had the urge to kill someone. You didn't know. How could you have the face to say such a thing? However, from this sentence, he really understood. This time it was really over. You're good. The Heavenly King of the Right nodded fiercely. Nan, wait for me. Mayor Nan Fong. I'll wait for you to be dealt with. When he saw this sentence, his burly body suddenly swayed. A stab to the heart. Nan, you're really my good brother. You're awesome. But now is not the time to be angry. What happened? Tell me clearly. On the other side, Mayor Nan Fong wanted to cry, but had no tears. I don't know how boss's phone fell into the hands of sister-in-law. Could it be that we caught up with the investigation of his private money? How did boss's phone fall into the hands of sister-in-law? This sentence means, you actually took the initiative? In other words, you took the initiative to sell me out? Yu Dongtian gritted his teeth and suppressed his anger. He said word by word, what did you say? Minister Nan was also very straightforward. Of course it's because you, Heavenly King of the Right, insisted on doing things your own way. I tried to persuade you many times. Yu Dongtian stood up as if his but was on fire. He shouted, Nan Zhengqian, you're fucking doing it. You won't be satisfied if you don't kill me. Yu Dongtian had absolute confidence that Xiao Duo would definitely not die. But this matter, whether he reported it or not, was completely different. It had two meanings. If he said after the event that nothing happened and gave the little guy some benefits, it would be over easily. But in the middle of the matter, when Xiao Duo was hovering between life and death, he suddenly told his mother that he used her son to set up a trap and baited a lot of old devils. It would be a light punishment if he didn't get beaten to death. Even if they knew that it was necessary, even if they knew that it was a normal operation, even if there were 10,000 shoulds, it would definitely not be comparable to the anger of a mother. Mayor Nan Fong's voice came from the phone. It can't be helped. You're tall, so you can handle it. I can't. We've been good brothers for so many years. The most important thing is to understand each other. You have to understand my difficulties. Yu Dongtian wanted to cry, but had no tears. I understand your difficulties. Okay, I understand. But who the fuck understands my difficulties? You put the blame on me, and you'll be fine. But what about me? You. Hello. Nan Zhengqian, hello. Yu Dongtian was so angry that he couldn't speak. Minister Nan coughed. Heavenly King, all I can do is to inform you. Cough, we're all brothers. You don't have to be too grateful to me. You're on your own. Before he finished, he had already hung up the phone. On the other side, Heavenly King collapsed on the sofa. I've been betrayed. I've been completely betrayed by my own brother. What should I do? Now, taking revenge on Nan Zhengqian was secondary. The most important thing was, how could he put the blame on someone else? He frowned and thought for a while, but he realized that there was no way. Fuck this fucker. Dongfang Zhengyang? Ximen Lai? Beigong Hao? Wu Taijiang? These people were not qualified. How could these people command the Heavenly King of the Right? Was this a joke? His eyes were rolling. Where was his father now? Should he put the blame on his father? But it didn't seem safe. It was enough to put the blame on his father. But it would turn into a three-man fight, or should he seek refuge from his father? But it didn't seem safe either. If he was found, he might drag his father down with him, it was better to be beaten up by his father. Maybe his father would give him away. That was definitely possible. Maybe it would still be a three-man fight in the end, how many years would it take for the couple to come back? Sigh. This is really normal. Why can't you understand me? Heavenly King was extremely distressed. From this moment on, there were two more uneasy people in the world. He checked his phone almost every few seconds. Was there any new news? Or did he not hear the notification from his phone? Why wasn't there any news? He was as nervous as a person waiting for a reply after sending a confession message to his crush. Could it be that he wasn't angry? He didn't even dare to think about it. The possibility was zero. Heavenly King of the Right was uneasy. He kept muttering. Back then, I was used as bait many times. Back then, when you used me as bait, you said more than once that you wanted to let the child grow up in the wind and rain. Actually, this is normal. Everyone understands, and has done it before. I'm doing this for the sake of the world, for the well-being of the people, and for the safety of the continent. This should be completely understandable, right? But why do I feel so anxious? It's really going to be fine. I promise it's going to be fine. There was no phone call or message. He was getting more and more anxious. Hurry up and call him to scold him. Why wasn't there any news? Down at the mountain pass. At the peak, on a big tree, a skinny old lady with white hair and a face full of wrinkles was sitting with her eyes closed while holding a sheathed sword in one hand. She didn't care who came. It had nothing to do with her. She just sat there. She didn't hide herself from the start and was exposed in front of everyone. However, other than the people from Hidden Dragon High School, almost no one knew her and knew her background. His entire person looked like a statue. Grandma Sure. Grandma Sure didn't care about anything now. No matter what kind of demon you were, no matter what kind of expert you were, no matter what kind of god you were, she didn't care about them at all. As long as Xiao Duo came out, if he couldn't hold on and someone wanted to kill him, whoever came would die. If you don't die, I die. That was all. White hair, skinny body, indifferent to everything, even to life and death. For some reason, even the infamous three demons of Yellow Spring felt a bone-chilling cold when they passed by Grandma Sure. A kind of cold loneliness. This made the three demons who didn't like this old lady to begin with rush into the Star Beast Forest as if they didn't see her. Moreover, he had tiptoed in. They didn't know this old lady and didn't know who she was. However, the three demons didn't want to provoke this kind of aura. Chapter 562. The three ghosts of Huang Quan were very clear. This old lady's cultivation might not be as high as theirs, but her entire being had a feeling of having lost all hope. Death is a kind of release. She no longer had the slightest bit of attachment to the world. The three ghosts of Huang Quan, who had been rolling in the martial world for their entire lives, deeply understood that in this world, the so-called desperados, the ferocious devils, were not scary at all, because no matter how ferocious those people were, they still wanted to live. More than anyone else, to live for a long time. The so-called desperados, the so-called ferociousness, everything was just a facade, a false coat to hide their true nature. The most frightening thing was actually like this old lady. Living had already become torture for her, but she had no choice but to continue living and could not die. This kind of person, the thoughts of this kind of person were completely unreasonable. Give her a little reason, and she would risk her life with you. The risk here was not just words, but actual actions. Or just because you spit on her, she would charge forward and self-destruct. If you provoked such a bomb, then you would be inviting the death god, seeking your own death. This kind of thing, the three ghosts Boss Hang Ghost had once seen at close range. He was a divine reigning master. His entire family had been killed by his enemy, and he had already exterminated the entire family of his enemy. He was the kind of person who did not even have a target for revenge and had no desire to live. A divine reigning master with a much higher cultivation than him met this person and only snorted arrogantly, expressing his disdain, and glanced at this person. He really only glanced at him subconsciously. For an expert with a higher cultivation base, this was nothing but a trivial matter. My cultivation is higher than yours, so I glanced at you subconsciously. What's wrong? Who dares to offend me? However, that divine reigning master exploded and actually raised his head lifelessly and asked, "What are you looking at?" The divine reigning master subconsciously asked back, "What's wrong with looking at you?" This person said, "If you have the guts, why don't you try looking again?" The divine reigning master. "Let's try." Then he really glanced again. Then this imperial god expert actually didn't waste any more words, directly rushing forward and self-destructing. That was burning one's lifespan, spirit, soul, consciousness, cultivation, astral souls, and everything else. It was the most extreme way to self-destruct. Just like that, it hugged this returning profound expert tightly and exploded. This arrogant Gui Xian expert was blasted into pieces on the spot. Although the returnable profound expert didn't die, his true cultivation was far superior to that of the royal deity cultivator. Even though he had suffered severe injuries, he still managed to survive. However, he also paid the heaviest price because of this. After this sudden self-explosion, he was blown up into a cripple. His foundation was damaged, and it was the kind that couldn't be treated. That this Gui Xian expert did not even wait for him to fully recover before announcing his withdrawal from the Jianghu. However, it was not because of bravery, but because of fear, a fear that came from the depths of his soul. There are often too many dangers and unpredictable changes in this world. He only glanced at her, and she exploded. Sigh. The martial arts world is no longer the martial arts world of the past. There's too much hostility. This was that person's final sigh. From then on, the martial arts world no longer saw that arrogant and despotic Gui Xian expert who was like a peacock spreading its tail feathers. He had completely gone into seclusion. That self-explosion had directly caused him to be afraid when he saw people. He was afraid of whoever he looked at. No matter who he saw, he didn't even dare to look at them. The repercussions were severe to a certain extent. He didn't even dare to make a move. If he didn't go into seclusion, what else could he do? This was the consequence of casually glancing at someone. It was that serious. Therefore, when the leader of the three ghosts of Huang Quan saw this old lady, this familiar aura made him immediately recall a distant memory in his heart. Then, his reaction was like a normal person who had seen a nuclear bomb with the safety off. Run quickly. Run quickly. Not only did he run, he even warned his two brothers. Don't look at the old lady. Don't even look. Are you tired of living? Drowned Ghost and Hungry Ghost were confused as they followed their leader. They thought that they had met some hidden, peerless expert. They kept tumbling all the way. They didn't even dare to make a sound. That old lady's image instantly became lofty in their hearts. She was so high that they couldn't reach her, so high that they had to look up to her. What kind of expert could frighten their mighty and domineering leader to this extent? In the distant star beast forest, a violent roar soared into the sky. It was filled with violent emotions, tearing apart the clouds in the sky. A wave of spiritual power suddenly spread out along with this roar. Within a radius of 3,000 miles, everyone could clearly hear the message transmitted by this spiritual power. Humans, why are you invading my territory? The moment some martial artists with lower cultivation levels sensed this spiritual power, their faces turned pale. This was a king-level star beast, one that could communicate with humans using divine consciousness. In just a short while, they had already hit the jackpot. That a sinister voice said, "Tiger King, please don't be angry. We are only here to chase after a fugitive. Once we catch the fugitive, we will immediately leave. We won't dare to offend you. Please forgive us." The Tiger King was furious. "Quibble. What kind of fugitive dares to come to my territory? Get out of here immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for starting a massacre and causing misery and suffering." "Tiger King, please calm down. We will just take a detour." It was still the same sinister voice that spoke. Then it led the group in another direction. However, just as they turned a few hundred miles down on the other side, a bolt of lightning descended from the sky and struck the head of a cloud transformation cultivator, turning him into a pile of charcoal on the spot. The rumbling sound shook the entire Starlight Mountain range. Then a hissing sound rang out, and a gust of fishy wind filled the air from a few hundred miles away. Another wave of spiritual power followed. "You can't afford to offend the Black Tiger, but can you afford to offend me?" This time, the one who spoke was the Sky Star Snake King, the king-level star beast in the star beast forest. In the distant sky, a huge snake tail suddenly appeared and swung over like a long whip. Just the snake tail that was swung out was 7 to 8 feet long. The instant it flashed in the sky, 2 more bolts of lightning descended from the clouds. 2 infant transformation cultivators instantly turned into dozens of charred corpses. Everyone immediately changed their direction again, and their search became even more gentle, fearing that they would attract the killing intent. This area was really too dangerous. There was more than one king-level star beast, and they would even kill without a word. Everyone was cursing in their hearts. Why did this Washadow run around? Running to the Starlight Mountain Range? Isn't this finding trouble for us? Isn't it better to just fight outside and have his head cut off by us? That would be more straightforward than in the dense forest. It was a black tiger, at least as tall as a 3-story building. Its fur was shiny, as if it was shrouded in a black fog. It was quietly lying in a big hole looking outside. It didn't show any signs of anger, but its expression was somewhat anxious. Right in front of it, there was an empty space. The place where there used to be grass or trees was now completely empty. There was only a faint and illusory special light that was beginning to seep out from the ground bit by bit. The black tiger's 2 big eyes looked at the light, and its expression was full of desire and desire. But more than that, it was still nervous. Damn human beings! This piece of heavenly tiger moonlight ointment is about to be unearthed. Why are there so many people here? Hunting fugitives? Do you think I'm stupid? What kind of fugitive is worthy of so many people? There are many powerhouses of the god royal realm, or even higher. Are they here to snatch the treasure from me? Thinking of this, the Tiger King's murderous intent suddenly rose, and it was difficult to suppress. The Tiger King was really angry. Ever since it found this heavenly tiger moonlight ointment by coincidence, it had been guarding here for 3,700 years. It was only in order to swallow it when it matured and advanced to the next level. That was why it had been holding on for so long. At this moment, this group of damn human beings actually wanted to destroy it. This was intolerable. The Tiger King's eyes were overflowing with incomparable hostility. Its huge tail, about 2 meters in diameter, swept back and forth. On both sides of its body, it slowly propped up its wings. Rows of 10-meter-long, sword-like wings flickered with dazzling sharpness and cold light, which was breathtaking. No matter who it is, don't even think about snatching this heavenly tiger moonlight ointment from my mouth. As long as I swallow this heavenly tiger moonlight ointment, I will be able to awaken the heavenly tiger bloodline and increase my strength to the legendary great demon level. The heavenly tiger's inheritance will also be open to me along with the awakening of the bloodline. Sigh, the good days when the demon race ruled the world. I didn't have the fate to meet it. It was said that the entire heavenly court was built by us demons at that time. Those glorious days. Those awesome ancestors. Where in the world did you bring the demon alliance to? Do you know that we, the descendants of the later generations, live very hard on this continent, that the Tiger King, who was deep in thought, felt a surge of melancholy. He wanted to return to the embrace of his ancestors, to return to the protection of the powerful demon race, that those were the days that the tiger god longed for. And on the other hand, his desire for the heavenly tiger moonlight ointment grew stronger. After all, this might be the only way to transform himself and follow in the footsteps of the powerful demon race. On the other side of the distant Starlight Mountain Range, in the sparse forest, another 2 huge creatures quietly landed and tiptoed towards the Starlight Mountain Range. Those were 2 tigers, 2 saber-winged tigers. However, these 2 saber-winged tigers were not the least bit glamorous. They were covered in wounds and dripping with blood. It was obvious that their journey to the Starlight Mountain Range was not very pleasant. If Zwishauduo was here, he might be able to recognize that one of the saber-winged tigers was the tiger beauty he knew. The other one was, of course, this tiger beauty's husband, the male tiger. Chapter 563. The 2 saber-winged tigers ran as fast as they could, trying their best to hide their tracks to avoid being discovered. If these 2 saber-winged tigers could speak, they would definitely say, "We're so unlucky, so unlucky." Their nest had been wiped out, and all of their brethren had died an unnatural death. Fortunately, after the husband and wife had eaten the nidin, they had digested it again and again, and their cultivation had improved greatly. That was how they had been able to escape and survive until now. Otherwise, they would have become the spoils of war of the humans. They ran as fast as they could, so how could they care about which direction to go? Whoa, the starry mountains are in front. Whoa, I heard that we'll be safe once we're inside. There are many high-level star beasts gathered here, and they'll definitely protect us. Whoa, hurry up, stop talking nonsense. Whoa, the children are gone. Whoa, we're safe. Let's make a few more nests. Whoa, dead ghosts. The two tigers rushed into the starry mountains like they were flying. Whoa, there seems to be the same kind of aura. Whoa, I also feel it's so strong. Whoa, hurry up, senior, we're coming. About 300 miles ahead of where Zwishadua was hiding, there was a huge valley. The surroundings were cold and wet, and every stone was slippery. Below, there seemed to be a huge flowing black lake. In the morning fog, it flowed slowly and flowed suddenly. The lake seemed to be still, and there were no more waves. After a while, a whirlpool appeared on the lake. A huge black head suddenly stretched out from the black lake. It was only the head and neck, but it was already as tall as a 2-story building. It was really huge. The black head looked ferocious and terrifying, and the 2 feelers on its head were at least 100 meters long, swaying in the air. It seemed to have found something interesting, and its whole body slowly rose from the lake. That black head was actually a humongous centipede. The giant centipede swam for a bit and came to the shore. It coiled its body under a cliff and stopped moving. Its 2 protruding eyes, which were as big as a square table, looked around in confusion. Why did he vaguely feel that something was wrong? Today's wind was a little noisy. Then he placed his feet on the ground and tilted his head to listen to the movements of the outside world. If someone were to see this scene, they might be scared out of their wits. This centipede had hundreds of feet. No, hundreds. No. There were at least 700 to 800 pairs, or even more. Any one of its legs was at least 20 meters long. Thick, long, and hard. It was covered in fur. What was going on outside? Could it be that those despicable humans had finally discovered that there was something good hidden in this valley that was about to mature and be unearthed? The giant centipede became more and more vigilant. It dug a hole under its body and slowly hid its body. No matter what, I won't leave this mountain cliff. The pain was unbearable, but there was an end to it. At this moment, Zwishadua had completed the first compression. With a pale face, Zwishadua rested for a long time. Then, he lay down in the Tower of Annihilation and fell into a deep sleep. He slept for more than 3 hours. When he woke up, he realized that he had nothing to do. So, he took out the Jade of Astral Souls and the Dragon Blood Flying Dagger again and started to practice. He wanted to be in his best condition at all times. Another 6 hours passed in this round of training. He had to admit that after his cultivation improved, the speed at which he absorbed spiritual energy became more and more terrifying. After the first compression, Zwishadua's energy center's upper limit reached a new high. After 6 hours of continuous practice, the heart of the sun emitted abundant heat energy, the consumption of a large amount of top-grade jade of astral souls, and the energy contained in the dragon blood flying dagger had all turned into mist in his energy center. The storage capacity of the dragon blood flying dagger seems to be very ordinary. Zwishadua looked at the dragon blood flying dagger. He finally understood why Uncle Nan had given him this thing back then. It was because the storage capacity of this dragon blood flying dagger was an unparalleled treasure for cultivators with low cultivation. But at Uncle Nan's level, the so-called benefit of the dragon blood flying dagger was just a drop in the ocean. It was completely useless. Even for the current him, it was barely enough for him to use. The dragon blood flying dagger, which was originally in a saturated state, had already consumed 2/3 of its storage capacity. According to this ratio, the amount of dragon blood flying dagger that was consumed to the point of vomiting was not enough for Uncle Nan's one breath of breathing, that's where Xiao Duo made a rough calculation. According to his current progress, once he reached the Cloud Transformation Realm, even if he didn't reach the Cloud Transformation Realm, the Dragon Blood Flying Dagger would lose its use to him. I still need more good things, was Xiao Duo sighed from the bottom of his heart. Things like compression could not be continued for the time being. After going through compression once, what he really needed to do was to fight. Using actual combat to consume the recharged true chi and true essence was like a person who had eaten a full meal and needed to digest the food. At the same time, he needed to consolidate his current gains and adapt to them. Fortunately, there were many people outside who were not afraid of death. Large amounts of wealth were waving at him. Boss, be careful. The centipede is coming out. Xiao Long's voice came in time. Centipede? Where is it? The first thing that Xiao Duo thought of was a main dish, fried centipede. This main dish was to cut off the head and tail of the centipede and pinch it with your hands. The snow-white centipede meat fell into the seasoning, rolled it around, and then put it into the boiling oil that then it was scooped up with boiling water and sprinkled with fine salt. Oh my God, that's what Xiao Duo's saliva flowed out. Where is it? Where is it? The size should not be small. I'll catch it and fry it. It'll definitely be satisfying. Xiao Duo looked at Xiao Long. The fried centipedes that he had eaten in the past were all snatched up as soon as they were on the table. Xiao Long solemnly reminded himself that it must be a star beast. The size should not be small. It was just right for him to gorge himself and satisfy his cravings. Xiao Long was obviously a little Spartan. He looked at Zwa several times and was obviously surprised by Zwa's courage. That thing, you dare to eat it? It should be at least 100,000 caddies, right? Xiao Long said uncertainly. 100,000 caddies? Zwa Xiao Duo was shocked. Is there a centipede settlement here? Why are there so many of them? If there are so many of them, not only can I eat them myself, but I can also sell them. Not bad, not bad, not bad at all. One. Xiao Long's two little paws covered his eyes. One. Zwa Xiao Duo opened his mouth, so wide that he could swallow a goose egg. 100,000 caddies for a centipede? Yes. Cough, cough. Zwa Xiao Duo readily admitted defeat. That's too big. It's not easy for a centipede to grow that big. I won't eat it. I won't eat it. I'll just treat it as doing a good deed. He could not afford it, nor could he afford to offend it. A centipede of 100,000 caddies. What kind of existence would that be? Eat it. It's more like it would eat me. Cough, cough. I'd better not think about it. Zwa Xiao Duo cautiously came out of the Tower of Annihilation, that as soon as he returned to the cave, he keenly felt that the air around him seemed to have stagnated. He was clearly 500 meters below the surface, but he still felt as if his body was stuck in a thick kanji, unable to move freely. The centipede above was so scary. Long, long. How far are we from that centipede now? Xiao Long went to confirm again. 200 miles. 200 miles. It's so far away, but it can still cause such a big disturbance. It seems that it's really skilled. Zwa Xiao Duo was depressed. He very carefully began to dig a hole, loosened the soil underground, and dug all the way in the direction of the centipede queen. Basically, he asked Xiao Long to go outside to investigate the situation and report back at any time that he dug very carefully, almost silently. 5 miles, 10 miles, 25 miles that Xiao Long came in again and again to report. It hasn't noticed. It hasn't noticed yet. It still hasn't noticed here. It has noticed, but it doesn't care. Zwa Xiao Duo had expected this. The little movement he made was similar to a mouse digging a hole for a gigantic star beast that weighed at least 100,000 caddies. It was even lighter than a mouse digging a hole. And why would a great demon king that weighed more than 100,000 caddies care about a mouse digging a hole? Even if it noticed, it wouldn't take it to heart. When a person walked on the road, would he notice a worker ant running in an ant nest under his feet? That would be impossible. Therefore, Zwa Xiao Duo wasn't too worried about the movement he made. Until the centipede queen keeps looking in this direction. When he heard Xiao Long's report, Zwa Xiao Duo immediately stopped digging. He had dug a distance of about 120 miles. It wasn't short. On the ground. The gigantic centipede coiled at the bottom of the cliff. Its huge eyes flashed with doubt as it stared in a certain direction. There was a little thing digging a hole over there. It should be a little mouse or a rat demon. It actually dug for so long and gradually approached the territory of this king's forces that if it continues to dig here, I'll be angry. Although it's just an ant and not worth my anger, it's annoying to keep digging in this direction, right? Fortunately, it soon discovered that the little mouse seemed to have changed direction and went in the opposite direction. The centipede shook its head, and its 200-meter-long antennae swayed. I won't bother with an ant. You're lucky that it left. It's probably a beast's instinct to seek good fortune and avoid calamity, a warning of impending doom. Zwishauduo, who was in the hole, made a prompt decision and quickly adapted. At the end of the hole, he cleaned up the soil and then carefully buried a string of triggered mines. Chapter 564. After arranging everything properly, he immediately dug a hole in the opposite direction. After digging nearly 100 meters underground, he coincidentally found an underground river. Zwishauduo took advantage of the opportunity and jumped into the river, drifting away with the flow of the river. Finally, he felt the sticky feeling gradually fade away. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. He chose a new angle and started digging again. I'm going to go out and see the light of day again. I'm going to wipe out the evildoers. Long, Zwishauduo worked diligently while asking Xiaolong, say, if I lure people to the centipede, do you have any means to get me out of danger immediately? Obviously, Zwishauduo had a devious idea. That's hard to say. Xiaolong wagged his tail. I'm just an illusion. I'm a luck dragon, the kind that doesn't have a physical body. How would I know the combat power of this centipede? But on the other hand, no matter how powerful this centipede is, it can't do anything to me without a physical body. How poisonous is this centipede? Zwishauduo asked. Boss, with your cultivation level, it's about the same. One breath from it will turn you into pus. You don't have to worry too much about it. It's the kind that can be done casually. Xiaolong was very honest. But Zwishauduo obviously didn't like this kind of honesty. It's that powerful? Yes, it is. Xiaolong thought for a while and said, Boss, if you use the Flaming Sun Sutra, there's a chance that you can evaporate the poison in advance. Naturally, the poison won't be able to do anything to you. Oh? However, that's on the premise that the centipede isn't specifically targeting you. To the current you, a single breath from him is basically enough to kill you if you graze him. Xiaolong said, anyway, it's very dangerous. There's a high probability that you won't be able to avoid it. So, it's best not to take such a risk. Zwishauduo snorted and thought, I don't want to do this either. But there are so many people outside waiting to kill me. I will either be killed by the centipede or by these people. One was to sit and wait for death, while the other was to seek survival in the midst of death. If he took a risk, he might be able to borrow the centipede's power to kill those people outside and break through the gate of death. How many people are there in this large area outside? Zwishauduo had almost reached the ground, and his movements were getting softer and softer. There are at least 4,000 to 5,000 people now. Xiaolong coughed. So many? Have you really confirmed it? Are you kidding me? Zwishauduo was shocked by this number. What about the surface now? There are some around, but there's no one in front. There are only 2 snakes. Zwishauduo's courage was instantly boosted. After touching a huge tree root, he immediately activated the Flaming Sun Sutra and quietly burned a hole in the tree. Then he slid out of the hole like a snake. However, he was immediately surrounded by a slippery feeling. The 2 snakes near him were not small. They were originally coiled around the tree, and each of them was as thick as a water tank. When Zwishauduo popped his head out of the hole, he happened to fall into the arms of one of the snakes. Zwishauduo was already prepared for this, but the snake that Zwishauduo was hugging gave him a huge fright. Fuck, I was doing something indescribable with my wife, and a human came out from between our bellies? What kind of change is this? At this moment, the 2 snakes were stunned. The female snake was even thinking, did I give birth to him? It can't be so fast, right? I just started doing it, and it's not even done yet. The male snake was startled and immediately froze. Did I get cuckolded? But the problem was, as a human, who would have the guts to mess with snakes? The next moment, hiss. Two ferocious mouths opened at the same time. They had to deal with this kid quickly, and then continue to do happy things that, however, a flame with hidden heat gradually rose. The two excited snakes immediately felt that they were entangled with a volcano that was about to erupt. They hissed miserably as they separated. However, the place where they were entangled with each other was already charred, and half of their bodies were cooked. The two snakes rushed out in two completely different directions, as if they had gone mad. Husband and wife were snakes in the same forest, but when disaster struck, they would crawl separately. I don't need to be too fast now. I just need to be faster than the male snake, female snake. Then, that terrifying human won't come after me. The two snakes were charred black, and the smell of meat wafted in the air. Of course, Zwishaoduo did not chase after them. His target was never these two snakes. The heavens are kind. These two snakes are also living beings, masters with thought, with compassion. The sudden movement here had already attracted the attention of the other side. The four black-robed men on the other side carefully flew over. Among these people, two were at the peak of nascent soul, and the other two were at the initial stage of cloud transformation. After the four of them came to the Starry Mountain Range, they knew that their strength was not high enough, and they were almost at the bottom. They felt that they had to take the initiative to gain the upper hand. Basically, he rushed in without much thought. But after rushing in, they could not find any trace of Zwishaoduo. And the more they rushed in, the stranger the atmosphere became. After coming here, they did not dare to move at all, and could only search carefully. Not long ago, they were frightened by the Tiger King and the Snake King. They wanted to retreat, but they were not willing to. And they had gone too deep, and it was also dangerous for them to retreat like this. So, they wandered around with a little hope, hoping for a fluke. In fact, there were many people who had the same idea as them. These people actually had the same idea. They were not strong enough, so they did not dare to take risks. But if they did not dare to take risks, how could they complete the task and get good things? They also wanted to be cautious, but the situation now was that there were too many strong people, so they could not be cautious. If they wanted to gain something, they could only risk their lives to have a chance. Who did not want good things? Since they were already here, they were in the same realm as the target. If they did not try their best, how could they be satisfied? Which strong person who climbed to the top did not take risks like this? If they died, it was just bad luck. But if they could survive, they would definitely be able to become stronger, and they would be able to write their own legend. People in the Jianghu were just like this. Either there was no corpse left, or there was a meteoric rise. However, although they had prepared for this, when they saw another small team being turned into charcoal by the lightning triggered by the snake, they could not help but be shocked and frightened. Everyone held their breaths and waited for a long time. When the surroundings were quiet, they finally wanted to leave today. Why did a person appear here? Bald head. Young. Fuck. The heavens really did not disappoint those who worked hard. We waited for our luck to turn. As long as they killed this kid, stuffed the corpse into the space ring, and slowly made their way out to the edge. After a few days, they would pretend to be depressed and retreat with everyone. We, the four wolves of the Black Mountain, were indeed blessed by the heavens, and were about to write a legend. Zwishaoduo. The boss was afraid that he would recognize the wrong person, so he actually lowered his voice and asked. Zwishaoduo turned his head. Who is it who called me? Then he panicked. Mommy, run! His body rushed out like an arrow. Chase! The four of them displayed the highest speed in their lives at the same time. Their hearts were burning with incomparable passion. Even the gloomy and terrifying dense forest seemed to have become cute. What was there to be afraid of? Fuck it. As long as they killed Zwishaoduo, everything would be good. Zwishaoduo rushed out more than 100 feet with a whoosh. Suddenly, he circled in the air, but after confirming that there was no one else around, he immediately turned around. The four of you, your luck today is not very good, Zwishaoduo said with a smile. Bad luck filled the sky, Blood covered the top. There is a bloody disaster, and your life is in danger. The four of them had already caught up. Cut the crap. Kill him. This is the only chance, a heaven-sent opportunity. We can't miss it. You don't believe me? Zhuo said angrily. I am a god, the number one in the aspect, and have never been wrong. Haven't you heard of it? What use is a god to us? The sword aura had already whistled and turned into a dragon. Buddha is merciful. Zhuo's face was full of compassion. You must remember, I have read your fortune and taught you. Disaster is in front of you, but you don't know how to cherish it, don't know how to seek good fortune and avoid disaster. You are courting death. Before his voice died away, his body suddenly spun up, and two training hammers were already in his hands. One of the hammers pointed to the sky, and immediately there was a whoosh causing the air to distort. The other hammer pointed to the ground, and with the same whoosh, the ground actually showed signs of cracking. The second level of the Flaming Sun Sutra, the extreme power of the red sun golden sun erupted, and the surroundings immediately turned into a heatwave hell. The sudden appearance of a blazing aura set the surrounding lush forest ablaze in an instant. As the two hammers crossed, Zhuo's body had already exploded into a whirlwind, stirring up raging flames that burned the sky. Violent whirlwind, wind and fire converged, and wind and fire connected to the sky. Hammer! 3 rounds of continuous swings, and a series of violent clanging sounds were incessant. Fresh blood spurted out as if it was free of charge. The chests of the two people who bore the brunt of the impact were shattered, and their entire bodies flew straight out. Although the few of them tried their best to resist, Zhuo's hammers were simply too heavy and too fierce. When the weapons in their hands came into contact with the hammers, there was no way for them to resist. Instead, they smashed into their own faces, injuring themselves. Although one of the four used a hammer, his 2 hammers were nothing compared to Zhuo's. It was like a small juju pit meeting a large lead ball. When the 2 hammers collided, they immediately shattered, and countless fragments flew in the opposite direction, piercing into their eyes and deep into their skulls. The way they died was simply too horrible to look at, too horrible for words. Zhuo's body spun, and with the speed of his hands, he threw the 3 dead bodies into the Tower of Annihilation. Then he grabbed the one who was still alive and said indifferently, I said solemnly just now, didn't I? You guys will have a bloody disaster. Do you believe me now? This person's face was ashen, and his pupils were dilated. He was on the verge of death, and even as he was on the verge of death, he looked at Zhuo with eyes full of mockery, and mocked. How accurate. Monthly votes, subscriptions, and recommendation tickets. Chapter 565. This person was also speechless in his heart, as well as furious. Damn it, you still have the cheek to ask if your fortune-telling is accurate. I'm about to die, and you still want to play this trick. Are you a pervert? His final sentence of ridicule could be considered as venting his anger, his final breath. The man's head tilted, and he stopped breathing. Zhuo conveniently threw the corpse into the space and immediately began to clean up the traces. As long as there were traces of the sledgehammer, they could not be left outside. However, Zhuo was more gratified this time. The 4 people actually kept 3 space rings. In the previous round of fierce fighting, only one was smashed. This was an unprecedented huge gain, and Zhuo was overjoyed. It seemed that in the future, it would be more beneficial to do this. This kid was really greedy to the extreme. If it were anyone else in such a dangerous situation where the whole world was their enemy, why would they want a space ring? However, this guy would rather use the training hammer to try and see if he could keep more of the spoils of war. It had to be said that this was also an obsession. A terrifying obsession. Sure enough, wealth could enslave ghosts and even gods. Well, some of your belongings will be my reward for reading your fortune. If you don't have any fortune, won't you just die in vain? Zhuo muttered to himself. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly saw 6 drops of Providence points falling from the sky. In an instant, from his spirit, to his divine sense, to his cultivation, to his meridians and dantian, he felt an extremely comfortable feeling at the same time. Zhuo was inexplicably surprised by such a shocking change. Where did so many Providence points come from? However, after thinking about it for a while, he came to a realization. He had read the fortune of these people. No matter what his position was, no matter what the initiator was, it was a fact that he could see a bloody disaster. Even if he was the initiator, it was true that these people had suffered a bloody disaster. Since the bloody calamity had really happened, the few of them had died without any pretense. Most importantly, the last person had uttered 2 words before he died. Truly accurate. Although it was only 2 words, it had already played a decisive role. On the other hand, Zhuo took the spatial ring of the other party and also received the reward of the other party's recognition. This string of far-fetched conjectures coincidentally hit the mark, causing this fortune-telling to be completely established without any flaws. Of course, the reward of luck points would be given immediately without any delay. Awesome! Zhuo understood and almost wanted to laugh out loud. Thanks to his own greed, he managed to complete all the procedures by chance. Otherwise, how could there be such a generous reward? Such good things must be done more often. Helping others and helping oneself. The more the better. That's why being stingy is a virtue. We have to maintain it and carry it forward. Thinking deeper, the 6 luck points that he had just obtained should have been provided by the 2 high-level nascent soul cultivators, while the 2 cloud transformation cultivators each provided 2 points, making a total of 4 points. The providence points given by the nascent soul transformation realm and the cloud transformation realm were also different. The heavenly Tao was fair and did not deceive him. Awesome! At this moment, a voice came from afar. There seems to be a battle over there. Swoosh, swoosh, that the sound of something breaking through the air rang out one after another. Zhuo did not stop at all. The moment he put away the corpse, he turned his palm, and the spiritual qi in the air turned into the shape of a foot, pressing it on the ground. It created a trace that seemed to be left by an expert who accidentally left a footprint in the air, but it was very blurry that immediately after, his entire body spun for a moment before spinning out. He returned to the original path and once again entered the tree hole. Half of his body went into the underground tunnel below. Yes, half of his body was still in the tree hole. Now he was not in a hurry to leave. Now that he could attack or retreat, he naturally wanted to see if he could take advantage of this opportunity to make another kill. Zhuo did not have any psychological burden when it came to killing people. These people were here to kill him. So when he killed them, he did not even bother to say things like, "If you can kill me, why can't I kill you?" With Zhuo's temper, he had always been unwilling to say a word except when he was looking for providence points. However, there were too many trolls on the internet who would say that he was cruel. The other party did not say anything, but you killed them. Therefore, the handsome author took this opportunity to make a comment. Swish, swish, swished out of Zhuo's expectations. After a while, 30 to 40 people landed one after another. After these people landed, they all overflowed with energy to protect themselves. Then, they unsheathed their swords and placed them in front of their chests, ready to attack. Then, they released their qi. Everyone used their qi to lock on to the others who landed, to prevent themselves from being suddenly attacked. Then, they exerted force on their feet, shaking the ground 5 meters below the ground before they landed, to ensure that there were no poisonous insects or hidden weapons under their feet. At the same time, they held their breath to avoid accidentally inhaling poisonous fog. Zhuo saw very clearly that these people all had their mouths closed, but there were slight protrusions on their cheeks. If he guessed correctly, these people all had spiritual pills in their mouths, and there was more than one. There should be a detoxification pill, an internal injury pill, and a pill to replenish spiritual energy. The more, the better. Very few of them were stingy. Seeing this, Zhuo could not help but be disappointed. There were 30 to 40 old foxes who could not be more old. This bunch of fellows cherished their lives too much. Looking at their cultivation, he estimated that each of them had quite a high cultivation level. Hidden weapons could not be used for a sneak attack, and sword techniques alone could not defeat these people. If he used his extreme hammer techniques, he might be able to take them down, but it was still beyond his power to kill them all. Furthermore, his sledgehammer was something that could not be exposed. It was not worth it to expose it at this moment. But then, it was a mistake for him to wait here. There are traces of battle from the Flaming Sun manual, someone outside said softly. He looked around cautiously. Yes, there are indeed traces of the Flaming Sun manual's flame strength. There are also traces of battle with heavy weapons. Someone picked up a small fragment of the hammer on the ground. Although it was tiring just now, the fragment is very new and shiny. There are 4 people's footprints over here. Someone quickly looked around, different footprints, but the toes point in the same direction. These 4 people should be traveling together. There's 1 person over here. That's not right. There should be 2 people. Look over here, there's a clearly different footprint, but it's only stepping on empty air. It's not exposed. This situation should be. During the battle, when they exerted a lot of strength, they spun a little. Another person looked in that direction and seriously analyzed. The spin destroyed the footprint. It looks like no one has been here, but in fact, it's just a cover-up. The 10 or so people all looked over at the footprints on the ground. Everyone's expression was heavy. The Flaming Sun manual did make a move, but the other hidden person was the main attacker. In other words, on Zhuoxiao's side, other than Zhuoxiao himself, there was another helper, and this helper's strength was far above Zhuoxiao's. The key to this battle is this hidden person. When the 4 people rushed up at the same time, he killed all 4 of them in an extremely short period of time. He even took away the corpses and cleaned up the traces, intending to destroy the evidence of his existence. TSK, this guy is quite sinister. He actually has such a trick up his sleeve. I have to say he's thinking too much. Someone's expression was heavy as he said faintly, "Everyone, judging from the clues we have now," Zhuoxiao sighed. At the very least, there should be 2 people traveling together. Relatively speaking, it's only this one who made a move. Whether or not there are others is still unknown. We can't be careless. That makes sense. How could the Hidden Dragon sect's top martial artists not send people to protect Zhuoxiao? Our movements are so obvious. Of course, they would join forces with Zhuoxiao. Looking at the situation, it should be these 4 unlucky people who found Zhuoxiao by chance. However, they naively thought that Zhuoxiao was really alone, so they attacked blindly. It's a pity that they were killed as soon as they started fighting. Someone gloated. Luckily, this group of people helped us find the way. Otherwise, we might have fallen into their trap. That should be the case. Another person said, to be able to come here, one must at least have the cultivation and strength of the nascent soul transformation realm. And these 4 people were killed in an instant. Who here could do it? More than 20 people's faces were filled with disdain. Obviously, these people could do it. The sound just now shows that Zhuoxiao is nearby. He is just a junior in the embryonic breathing realm, so he can't run too far. That's for sure. Someone suddenly let out a soft cry of surprise. Zhuoxiao only felt a chill in his heart. An extreme sense of danger suddenly surged in his heart. With a thought, he suddenly used the 1,000-pound drop. His whole body fell from the tree hole to the ground 100 meters below with a bang. In an instant, smoke and dust filled the air. Almost at the same time, there was a loud bang and a big hole was formed in the ground. The big tree that Zhuoxiao had been hiding in had already been blasted into powder. The 2 of them rushed into the tunnel like lightning without any scruples. Their actions didn't inform anyone else, and they wouldn't inform anyone else. All these changes happened too quickly and too unexpectedly. Even though Zhuoxiao reacted quickly, he was still caught up by the 2 of them. Zhuoxiao, who was underground, had no choice but to react and didn't make a sound. Boom! He brazenly smashed out with his hammer. Dang! Sparks flew everywhere. The person in front slashed the big hammer with his knife. Zhuoxiao only felt as if his chest had been struck by lightning. A mouthful of blood almost rushed out, but he held it back and swallowed it back. His whole body flew out like lightning. The impact of this blow was so great that the tunnel hundreds of meters below collapsed with a bang. The person in front snorted and let out another roar. He attacked again. The light of his knife was bright and dazzling. With a boom, more than 100 cubic meters of soil was flattened by him. A large piece of soil flew up into the sky like a nuclear explosion. However, with this delay, Zhuoxiaoduo had already disappeared without a trace. Zhuoxiaoduo is below. No one knew who it was that roared. Chapter 566. The 30 to 40 people above regained their senses and entered the tunnel one after another. The sound of the wind rustled, and the qi rushed back and forth. When they saw Zhuoxiaoduo appear, they used their divine senses to search for him. The deep and wide tunnel, and even the underground river, entered their eyes. Zhuoxiaoduo's hiding place was completely exposed. Everyone rushed in without the slightest scruple. Everyone had a consensus. Under such circumstances, even if Zhuoxiaoduo had someone protecting him, what could they do? Could it be that with so many experts joining forces, they would still be afraid of them? If you had the ability to sweep through everything, why would you hide like this? Outside, more than 10 figures on the ground noticed the movement here. They followed the sound from different directions and entered the tunnel like smoke. So many people had already entered before them. If they entered now, they would have no scruples. They were only afraid that they would be too slow. However, everyone chose to sneak in without saying a word to anyone. Above them, there were other people passing by. They did not notice this place and turned to search elsewhere. A few people separated from their companions to search. Now that they noticed the movement here, they did not even inform their companions. The last person was the fastest. Obviously, he had the highest cultivation level and was the most confident. He rushed to the end like a ghost. With a backhand palm, he destroyed the outside. Then he shouted, "This is the Snake King, don't come over." His voice was full of pain, but he had already disappeared at the other end of the tunnel. Snake King? A few people were about to walk in this direction, but they immediately turned around. At this time, there were no less than 70 to 80 people who had entered the tunnel. They passed through the underground river and rushed forward. The traces of the dug soil were too easy to recognize. They followed the path without any obstruction. Even if there was loose soil in the way, how could it stop this group of tyrannical experts? Even Zhuoxiaoduo could not stop them, let alone these people. Now that the situation was getting clearer, everyone no longer had any scruples and chased after them. Everyone was experienced in the Jianghu. Naturally, they would not enter the tunnel whenever they saw it. However, the tunnel in front of them had clearly been dug not more than a day ago. This was something that everyone could easily tell. Furthermore, this tunnel led to Zhuoxiaoduo's hiding place. What was the cultivation level of Zhuoxiaoduo? If even he could hide here safely, at least the surroundings were definitely safe. In a place where even those in the embryonic breathing realm could survive, there naturally wouldn't be any star beasts that were too strong nearby. In short, all of this proved that this was the safest place without any danger. In addition, there was another more important reason. Zhuoxiaoduo, who had exposed himself, was running along this path just now. If he dared to run, then he was definitely not in danger. However, the last thing that gave everyone confidence was the fact that there were 70 to 80 extraordinary experts gathered here. Such a comprehensive combat power was enough to shake a mountain. Even if there was a risk, it would be nothing. They were all veterans of the Jianghu. Everyone had thought of this, which was why they dared to act like this. As for Zhuoxiaoduo's bodyguards, so what if Zhuoxiaoduo had bodyguards by his side? Could they be a match for so many of them? Today, at this moment, they had to get Zhuoxiaoduo's head. "Boss, no one is coming from outside." Xiao Long entered the Tower of Annihilation to report. Zhuoxiaoduo opened his eyes from his meditation and revealed a slight smile. The injuries that he had suffered just now had been healed by medicinal pills as soon as he entered the Tower of Annihilation. At such a time, he couldn't go out and cause trouble with his injuries. Zhuoxiaoduo's current position was in a pile of mud that was about 10 meters away from the entrance of the tunnel. The thick layer of mud was tightly wrapped around the Tower of Annihilation. As for Zhuoxiaoduo, he was naturally hiding in the Tower of Annihilation. Just now, after he had struck the hammer, He had only dashed forward for a while and immediately entered the Tower of Annihilation. What a joke! How could he keep running forward? Running forward was courting death. Okay. But there was an obvious path ahead, and these people would definitely chase after him, that when they reached the end, the real show would begin. I sincerely wish you all the best. You must meet that centipede. I have given you the completely correct path. The distance is so close, you should be able to meet it. That is the surprise that I have specially prepared for you all. Was Xiao Duo prayed. Boss, are we going out now? Xiao Long wanted to say something, but stopped. If not, why should we go out? So Xiao Duo said, what we need to do now is to meditate and cultivate for a while. Wait for a while. What was the hurry to go out for? The fate of this tunnel would depend on the subsequent development. If the centipede discovered these people, none of them would be able to survive. Then, after confirming that these people were all dead, he could use this tunnel again and continue to cause trouble. He had spent a lot of effort to dig this tunnel for so long. If he abandoned it now, it would be too wasteful. Of course, if these people were cautious enough and didn't alarm the centipede, then he would have to give up this tunnel. But by then, the subsequent development would be unpredictable, and the situation would be so bad that it might be out of control, that the Tower of Annihilation could fool people for a while. But if those people turn around and carefully investigated, they would eventually think of the Tower of Annihilation as the most impossible possibility. After all, when all possible options were denied, the most impossible possibility would become the only possibility at that time. Once these people joined forces to shake the area within 100 miles, exceeding the limit that the Tower of Annihilation could withstand, he would still be forced to show up. They will definitely meet, and they will even greet each other affectionately. As Xiao Duo muttered, Long, why did you ask me if we should go out just now? As Xiao Duo suddenly asked. Because on the other side of the tunnel, there is a treasure of heaven and earth growing underground. It is one of the things that you have been looking for, boss. Xiao Long said flatteringly, isn't this for your benefit? Good boy. As Xiao Duo praised, what kind of thing is it? It is a black vine made of enchi. It has now condensed into a substance and transformed into a strange tree that lives underground. It has 18 triangular leaves, and each of the 3 leaves holds a red fruit. Xiao Long said very cautiously, it is probably because there is an enchi spiritual spring underground that caused this mutation. Well, that red fruit looks very much like the soul-tempering vermilion fruit that you mentioned before. Hearing this, Xiao Duo's spirit was lifted. Since Xiao Long had said so, then it was basically certain that it was the soul-tempering vermilion fruit. Otherwise, it would not be so excited and come over to take credit. Xiao Duo laughed and said, let's go over and take a look later. If it is really the fruit, I will send you a DD. Thank you, boss. Xiao Long was so excited that he did a somersault. On the ground, Yi Chongqing, Wen Xingtian, and the others rushed over like a whirlwind and met up with a teacher who was responsible for reporting the news outside. Where is Xiao Duo? He has now entered the Starlight Mountain Range. Judging from the current situation, there is a high chance that he has entered the depths of the Star Beast Forest. Oh, there is no movement for the time being, right? No. Who followed him? Teacher Zhan and the others entered the Star Beast Forest area after killing a round of outsiders. But I am not sure if they have met up with Xiao Duo. I got it. Yi Chongqing did not hesitate. He took a deep breath and led the team all the way into the Star Beast Forest. As he walked, he tried to contact Grandma Shi to find traces of her. At this moment, Yi Chongqing's heart was still very calm and composed. At least for now, Xiao Duo was still fine. The most direct reason was that Yu Jiaren was with him. With Yu Jiaren's cultivation and strength, even if she was no match for the other party, it was not difficult for her to escape with Xiao Duo and resist stubbornly for a period of time. If Yu Jiaren was fighting with others, Shi Yunfeng's golden sword would cause a huge commotion. The teacher who was reporting the news outside would not be able to see it. Since there was no movement now, it meant that Xiao Duo was still safe. Yi Chongqing did not know that Xiao Duo had lost contact with Grandma Shi and left the range of her protection because he had used the Tianyuan escape technique on the spot. If Yichangqing knew about this, he might go crazy on the spot. Whatever calmness and composure, there would be nothing left. In the tunnel, 70 to 80 people moved forward. Between each other, they were on guard and did not dare to be careless. Not to mention 70 to 80 people. The specific number should be 76 people. Everyone was anxious, no longer as excited as they were at the beginning. They were not worried about Zhuoxiao's sudden attack, but they were worried that the people around them would be unfavorable to them. There was only one reward, and it was difficult to divide it equally. The person who got it in the end would definitely not share it with others. Now the opportunity was right in front of them, but how to get it in their hands, there was still a follow-up. Among the 76 people, there were 6 Royal God Realm Masters, 43 Transformation Cloud Realm Masters, and more than 20 people. Although they were only at the high level of nascent soul, each of them had a deep foundation. Even if they fought with Transformation Cloud Realm Masters, they would not be at a disadvantage. With such strength, at least there was no problem for them to protect themselves. But once they killed Zhuoxiao, the reward would belong to someone else, and the person who got it would have to face the siege of others. Everyone thought that they would be the one who got it in the end, so they naturally thought that they would be besieged by others. A few people were already regretting in their hearts. They should not have been so selfish. They should have asked their companions to come together. Now they were alone. They were afraid that it would be difficult to deal with the follow-up, especially that the last person in black who came in was Hungry Ghost, one of the 3 ghosts of Huangquan. His body was so thin that it made people worry that he would fall to his death while walking. He was also the one with the highest cultivation level among the people present. Compared to the others, he was more than 1 level higher. But he did not expose his identity, nor did he reveal his real cultivation level. From the beginning to the end, he only revealed a little bit of his aura. It seemed that he was stronger than most people, but not by much. Chapter 567. After all, it was risky for him to kill Zhuoxiao. It was better for him to let the others do it first. After the enemies were killed, he could take Zhuoxiao's head from the others. It was better not to take risks if he could. After all, Zhuoxiao's bodyguards were very likely to be 2 high-level shadows. It was impossible to guard against such a person and such an opponent. He had to be careful. How did this kid dig such a long tunnel? Someone muttered. That's right. We've already traveled a few hundred kilometers, right? Besides, there's no movement in front. Could it be that the kid ran in another direction? Could this tunnel be a smokescreen? 2 of them had suspicious looks on their faces as they discussed in a low voice. However, everyone heard them clearly. Almost everyone curled their lips in disdain. These 2 idiots, do they think they can trick us with such little tricks? Wasn't this too fucking naive? Along the way, with everyone's cultivation, they could tell that there were no other traces of excavation on the cave walls. In other words, Zhuoxiao did not open another path. There was only this tunnel. This also meant that Zhuoxiao's final destination was in front of them. These 2 bastards are trying to use such a cheap trick to trick so many people. One of them snorted and said, if you think Zhuoxiao has gone somewhere else, go ahead and hunt him down. No one is going to stop you. The 2 of them did not say anything and continued to rush forward. If you don't believe me, then so be it. But we will not go out. Now, the biggest possibility was that Zhuoxiao's final destination was the end of this tunnel. But this tunnel is really long. I think young Master Zhuo is planning to stay here for a long time, until he survives this disaster. I have to say, he is a man with a lot of tricks and ideas. The further they went, the more cautious they became. In this kind of situation where it was completely dark and there was loose soil in front of and behind them, everyone felt a lot of pressure in their hearts. Therefore, someone could not help but speak. When someone spoke, someone else responded. That's right. If those 4 people hadn't discovered that tree hole, it would have attracted a lot of attention. The entrance to the tunnel is in a tree hole hundreds of miles away. What a genius! Who would pay attention to an ordinary tree hole that an ordinary bear hibernates in? What a talent! These people were actually praising Zhuoxiao as if they really admired this young man. Their ultimate goal was to completely kill this young man in exchange for their own benefits. Although everyone was cautious and on guard at all times, their speed was not slow at all. After all, the core of their goal was to find Zhuo as soon as possible and take him down. Only then would there be any follow-up. Along the way, many people talked and discussed with the people around them from time to time. They tried their best to make themselves seem familiar with the people around them. However, everyone knew that their words did not match their hearts. Gradually, they were about to reach Zhuo's final destination. Be careful, the person at the front warned in a low voice, which almost made everyone fall to the ground. The large area of soil here is unusually loose, much worse than before. There should be another passage here. Even if the person at the front did not say it, everyone could feel it. They had already spread out a large amount of divine sense to search the surrounding environment bit by bit. Otherwise, how could they be at ease with the person at the front? No one would ignore the preemptive strike of the person at the front after discovering Zhuo. After a successful strike, he quickly fled. However, at this time, while everyone confirmed that the environment was very different from before, they also felt a sense of crisis. It was as if there was something horrible here. It was secretly spying on them, like a tiger watching its prey. There's an ambush indeed. Everyone sensed this and felt relieved. Their journey here had been so smooth that it had already made everyone suspicious. How could there be no ambush? Previously, everyone was sure that Zhuo had someone protecting him, and there might be more than one person. How could they not make a move? They must be preparing a big move, right? He would give everyone on his side a ruthless blow and create chaos so that Zhuo would have the time to escape. At this moment, this vague and terrifying aura appeared, and everyone was relieved. They knew it. As long as it appeared, it was better than being paranoid. We have so many people here. Do you think we're afraid of you? The 76 people carefully searched the area. There's no passage here. There's no passage here either. The soil is very dense. It's the same here. It's only on this side that the soil is loose. It seems that Zhuo is still moving forward, but his helpers are waiting in front, ready to launch a sneak attack at any time. After everyone was sure, they finally began to move forward again. Someone suggested, the people at the front don't seem to dare to move forward. Why don't we change peoples? The people at the back naturally agreed, but how could the people at the front agree? If they let you go to the front, would it be my turn to take the reward? It was not easy to get such a good position, and they were looking forward to striking first. How could they give it up? The closer they were to the front, the more silent they were and the faster they walked. Everyone had their own concerns, and they followed with their heads down. However, the more they walked, the more obvious the feeling of oppression was, and the stronger the sense of crisis was. That why did it feel so dangerous? It felt like he was facing a peerless, ferocious beast. However, it had already come to this point. Who would be willing to back down? The Golden Mountain was right in front of them. Retreat? That would be a joke. They couldn't retreat even if they died. Not to mention the reward. They couldn't afford to lose their face. Dead on the ground. The huge centipede was getting more and more anxious. Are these little insects sick? They must be sick, right? First, that little thing from before dug a hole under my feet for so long, and I was already very magnanimous. Okay. Why did so many suddenly come in this time? Every one of them has a clear goal, and they're obviously here to destroy my nest. What do you want to do? Could it be that the little thing at the beginning was to scout the way and was prepared for these people? Then what these people want to do is too obvious. They're bullying the centipede too much. Do they really think that I'm so soft? This is intolerable. The group of people underground is getting closer and closer, and they're not slowing down. They're still walking in? Looks like they're here for me. No, I'm going to explode. I'm so angry, so angry. Just at this moment, that the people below stepped on the chain landmine set by Zhuo without any warning. The person at the front stepped on it, and only heard a light crack. He felt that something was wrong, and lowered his head to touch it. What did I step on? The people behind him scolded. Are you going or not? Why do you have so many bad habits when you're walking at the front? No, back down. The person at the front was an expert at the early stage of the god-reigning realm. He was one of the strongest in this group of people, and when he heard the criticism, his temper was definitely not good. He turned his head and scolded. "What's wrong with me investigating? Why do you have so many problems? If you're not happy, let's fight one-on-one." "Let's fight one-on-one then. I'm not afraid of you. Sun Chao, my hands have been itching for a few days. After this, no matter who gets the reward, we'll definitely get together and have some fun. Let's see if your life is tougher or mine is tougher." I'll definitely keep you company. Do you think I'm scared of you?" At this moment, an extremely ferocious aura arrived brazenly, as if it was descending from the sky. Master Centipede above couldn't stand it anymore. "It's too close." The purpose of this group of people is obvious. Be prepared to pay the price for provoking me like this. Once he made up his mind, he quickly rushed over here, that when this overbearing aura rushed over, everyone here shuddered. The person at the front instinctively took his foot back and got into a fighting posture, and his right hand had already taken out his weapon from the space ring. Then, just as he moved his foot away, boom! A deafening explosion came from under his feet. The landmines exploded. Everyone's expression changed. They became more vigilant and protected themselves with their gang chi. After the first explosion, dozens of landmines exploded one after another. For a moment, the earth shook and the mountains shook. Smoke rose everywhere. The entire tunnel collapsed, and everyone was smashed into the ground. To be fair, this series of explosions seemed to be rumbling, but in fact, the power and lethality weren't that great. They couldn't hurt these people at all. Even the weakest nascent soul cultivator was the same. It was just a sudden change that made everyone unable to react in time. As long as they had a dozen breaths' time, it was enough for them to regroup and stabilize the situation. However, the main point of Zhuxiao's arrangement was never about lethality. His main point was to create a certain degree of chaos. It should be known that the last section of the tunnel had no quality at all. It was inevitable that it would collapse under the series of landmines. What's more, this movement would completely ignite the ferocity of the centipede on the other side. It would make the two sides completely confront each other, and there would be no room for negotiation. This arrangement of landmines was really ingenious. It calculated the people's hearts meticulously. Well, there was also the beast's heart. As the landmines exploded one after another, an extremely ferocious aura seemed to have been stimulated by something. It covered the top and attacked with great momentum. The shadow of death loomed over everyone's hearts. There was indeed an ambush. There was an expert. Zhuxiao was really insidious. The hidden dragon was really prepared. Everyone roared together and attacked at the same time. Countless sword chi, saber chi, fist chi, and palm chi converged endlessly and launched a strong counterattack. Since they were destined to face each other head-on, what else did they have to worry about? There was only one word, which was to fight. With a boom, they rushed up. Chapter 568. The explosion just now only caused a huge commotion, but to these experts, they weren't injured at all. It was just a momentary disturbance, really nothing more. The 76 experts attacked at the same time, and their counterattack was earth-shattering. The entire ground was instantly pierced through. With a loud boom, a large amount of soil directly rolled up from hundreds of miles deep into the ground and rushed into the sky. No one knew how high it would fly, but as for the 76 figures, they soared into the air like demonic gods. Under the pull of their auras, everyone soared into the sky as though they were riding on clouds. Everyone reacted quickly, constantly borrowing the surrounding soil to fly, trying to save their physical strength as much as possible. Everyone knew that the other party had already attacked. As long as they reached the ground, this battle of life and death would begin immediately, and it wouldn't end until one of them died. Who dared to be careless? Even though there were many experts with tyrannical strength and absolute confidence in winning, everyone's hearts were never united. What if there was a situation where one of them died instead of the other? It was necessary to preserve their most complete combat strength. On the ground, that huge centipede was directly enraged. It had just rushed over, wanted to confirm the situation and see if it had to attack. Unexpectedly, a loud boom came from below, and the ground shook. Even its huge body trembled a little. It was this trembling that made the proud and arrogant centipede king fly into a rage. Anger filled its heart, and it couldn't restrain its anger. This group of ants actually dared to attack first. Were they trying to intimidate this king? This was simply a great humiliation. Without any hesitation, it smashed down with its claw, easily penetrating the soil layer. I'm going to flip this soil layer open, catch all these little bugs, and eat them one by one. I won't let any of them go. I'll turn all of them into feces. Who asked you to provoke this king? This was the consequence. This was the price. However, just as he started to dig, he realized that the entire ground had flown up, that an abnormally tyrannical force burst out from the ground and came over forcefully. Boundless and ferocious murderous intent suddenly erupted. At the same time, the ground thousands of meters around shook. The unexpected turn of events came so suddenly that the centipede queen, who was completely unprepared, was directly pushed away. Its body, which was hundreds of meters long and weighed more than 50,000 kilograms, fell backward. If it was a human, it would probably just squat on the ground in a sorry state and nothing else. Instead, it was a centipede. Although there was nothing else, it was even more pathetic. Even if it was just a little bit embarrassing, it was already a great humiliation that a realm king could not bear. Needless to say, the centipede queen's 1,000-long legs were facing the sky, revealing its white belly. The centipede queen's fury instantly reached its peak. Its fury burned through the 9 heavens and soared to 80,000 feet high. Ants, you have successfully angered this king. This king announces that I am angry. Or had he reached the peak, becoming hysterical? The centipede queen flipped over and lay on the ground once more. The moment its feet touched the ground again, its ferocious eyes stared ahead. The group of ants was about to come out. They were coming out. They must be here to deal with me. Otherwise, how could they be so arrogant? The centipede queen only had one thought left. It must let this group of insects who overestimated themselves know how powerful this king was. They had to pay the price for what they had done, the most painful price. It would not rest until one of them was dead. It must annihilate this group of insects. Boom! The ground flipped open. 76 people flew out in a hurry and landed on the ground beside them. Each of them held a weapon in their hands and swept their cold gazes around, trying their best to find traces of the enemy. They stood tall and firm, with the demeanor of an expert. Then, all of them felt the strong poison in the air at the same time. The antidote pills in their mouths were instantly chewed. However, such a cool pose only lasted for a second before it was disrupted by a cry of surprise. What is this? 76 people were stunned. Just as they came out of the ground and saw the light, it was no longer so dark. They could see with their naked eyes again. While everyone heaved a sigh of relief, they looked around and realized that it was right in front of them. It was right in front of them. This. What was this huge thing? It was more than 10 meters thick and more than 100 meters long. It had more than 10 to 20 meters long claws all over its body. There were at least 1,000 of them. Doubt what kind of plaything was this that the moment his gaze landed on them. Everyone was scared out of their wits. They were not stupid and could recognize that it was a centipede. But the question was, how could there be such a huge centipede in this world? Then everyone found out about another thing. Something bad had happened. They did not have time to think. At this moment, they moved together and leaped into the air. Everyone looked like they were ready to attack. But there was only one word in their hearts. Run! Leave this troublesome place quickly. I'll leave this troublesome place to the other fellow Taoists. Their actions and thoughts were completely opposite. In the eyes of the centipede queen, fuck, this group of ants is planning to attack me from the air. It opened its huge mouth and condensed a green-colored poisonous fog. At the same time, its huge body also leaped high into the air. Those densely packed long legs were like super sharp swords as they attacked. Puff, 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 puffed out in just a single exchange, a total of 18 people were pierced through by his claws. All of them were brought back under his feet and stepped on. Those who were hit let out shrill screams, but their bodies were pierced through like swords and claws, and they could no longer escape. In a moment, the horrifying poison spread all over their bodies. Soon, they all turned into a pale green color. Blood kept flowing out of their 7 orifices and wounds. Although they were still struggling, everyone could see that these 18 people were finished. There was no chance of survival. The remaining people were all swallowed by the green, poisonous fog. The centipede queen's gigantic body carried the 18 experts who were still screaming miserably as it spun in circles like a dragon. Everywhere it passed, the experts screamed miserably as they were hit and fell to the ground. Light shone in all directions. More than 30 experts performed the move of becoming one with their swords and slashed at the centipede queen's long claws. If this tactic worked and cut off the centipede queen's claws, they could naturally turn the situation around. At the very least, they could fight for a chance to escape. However, countless divine weapons imbued with vitality slashed at the centipede's claws. The result was only sparks flying in all directions. For this huge centipede, they basically did not cause any damage. The reason why it was probably because there were many places on the centipede's legs where the disgusting long hair had been cut off. However, many people were pushed down by the centipede. Its sharp claws still pierced through the bodies of those human experts. The landing points were unusually accurate, all piercing through their soft stomachs. Then, it brought them back and placed them under its feet. At this time, 7 royal god experts also performed the move of becoming one with their swords and attacked together. Join hands! Hungry Ghost, whose lips were even paler than usual, roared and attacked with all his strength. The Hungry Ghost General had gathered all of his cultivation into his sword. The sword light was 400 meters long. The magnificent sword light swept across. With a light cracking sound, the centipede queen roared at the sky. One of its front claws was actually cut off by this sword light. This was the first time it was injured in so many years. And the first time it was injured, its leg was broken, although it had more than 1,000 legs, but now one of its legs was cut off by Zhao's ants. Wasn't this a great humiliation? The centipede queen's anger burned even more. It roared at the sky. Its huge body was crazily motionless. 1,000 legs attacked together, and its 2 antennae suddenly waved. The poisonous fog in its mouth had already turned into poisonous liquid and was crazily spewing out. Bang, 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 point one after another. Human experts died under the centipede queen's feet. Of the 7 royal god experts, 3 had already been killed. The vitality of royal god experts was even more astonishing. Even if their bodies were cut in half from the waist to the abdomen, the upper body was still struggling to crawl, wanting to leave this place. However, the skin and face of the heavily injured body, as well as the broken limbs and internal organs, were all pale green. That was because the poison had entered the body, and there was no cure. Now, even if the world's most advanced nutrition cabin was here, immediately putting the broken body into it, together with the world's most advanced healing pills, it would still be useless. Although Hungry Ghost and the other 3 royal god experts were lucky not to be injured and still had the strength to fight, they couldn't help but tremble all over. The hand holding the long sword had already cracked, and their eyes were fixed on this crazy king of star beasts. Their faces were all green and green. Obviously, they were also poisoned, but they didn't dare to slack off, and they didn't dare to run. The centipede queen in front of them firmly locked onto the 4 of them with its spiritual power. If they tried to escape, they would only die faster. Yes, now only these 4 people were left. 76 people came in together, and the other 72 people were already lying on the ground. The first few corpses had already started to melt and turned into pus. Furthermore, one could see just how terrifying the poison was. With a sudden sound, a long leg flew over like a whip from the sky. The four of them roared together and raised their swords to block. With a loud bang, the three of them spat out blood and retreated. The other person's long sword was struck, and a streak of sparks flew out. It shot straight into the sky, and no one knew where it landed. The centipede queen's huge body moved slowly, and its two bulging eyes were full of coldness and cruelty. It moved slowly and slowly coiled into a big circle. As for Hungry Ghost and the other three, they were all trapped in this large circle. Their faces were ashen, and they were in despair. They were dead for sure. There was no need to guess anymore, and there was no chance left. Now, unless the top few experts in the world came, there was still a chance to save their lives. For example, after all, they were dealing with Xiaoduo, and it was related to Chief Nan. Chief Nan might come. If Chief Nan came, this centipede to him, even if it wasn't a piece of cake, it would be easy to deal with. But that Hungry Ghost and the others didn't dare to think so. Even if Chief Nan came, it was more likely that he would join forces with this centipede to kill the four of them. Why would he save them? Wishful thinking. Have you seen a centipede before? Yes. Then, have you seen a centipede that is bigger than a building? I have one here, right in front of me. I'm so excited. Like how Yi Changqing looked around anxiously, searching among the dozens of corpses. Don't let there be Xiaoduo. Don't let there be Xiaoduo. Don't let there be one. Don't look for him. That kid isn't here. When Xingtian grinned and whispered into Yi Changqing's ear, the situation is very clear now. That little bastard must have made a trap to lure some of the people who were chasing him here and fed them to the centipede. The explosion just now, if I'm not wrong, was caused by the last batch of firearms you gave him, those landmines. When Xingtian gave him a thumbs up, "Boss, I'm truly impressed by you today. You really made the best use of people and things. You could even think of this point in advance. Really, admirable." The corner of Yi Changqing's mouth twitched subconsciously. What he said was very reasonable. But the truth is, when I gave him the landmines, I didn't think of this move that if he really used the landmines as a bait, then Xiaoduo would definitely be fine. No one would stay in place and wait to be blown up after planting a landmine. He immediately relaxed and laughed. This little bastard is really a ghost horse. At this moment, a shrill cry of surprise rang out. "Third brother!" Everyone saw that the terrifying centipede had formed a large circle, and inside the circle, there were four humans with faces full of despair. Although these people were still holding weapons in their hands and seemed to be alive, everyone could see that. The four of them were done for. There was no hope for them to survive. And the one who cried out just now was the leader of the three ghosts of Yellow Spring, Hanged Ghost. At this moment, Hanged Ghost and Drowned Ghost were trembling all over, their eyes fixed on Hungry Ghost who was trapped in the centipede's circle in disbelief. Now, how could he have anything good to say, if not for Yi Changqing holding him back, when Xingtian would have already rushed over? Now, a few words of cursing was nothing. He could just curse whatever was vicious. Hanged Ghost was so furious that his eyes were about to bleed. One Xingtian, is this the duty of the hidden dragon martial school to be a model teacher? How can you speak so crudely? When Xingtian said disdainfully, "Fuck your mother. A bastard like you doesn't deserve to be called a hidden dragon martial school. Being a model teacher is for humans. Towards animals. Even if I speak crudely, I'll still find it disgusting." Hanged Ghost was so angry that he was panting. You? When Xingtian. "Fuck your mother." Hanged Ghost. When Xingtian. "Fuck your mother." "Ah, you're just an idiot who doesn't dare to come over after seeing your brother die, just like that." Hanged Ghost was so angry that his lungs were swollen. But now, he really didn't dare to go over. Of course, the Hidden Dragon Martial School had more than 20 people. They were strong and well-trained, and could be said to be the strongest in this group. Many of them had cultivation levels that were not below his. Even if there was a slight difference, it wouldn't be by much. As long as he went over, he would be surrounded and beaten mercilessly. Not to mention that there was also Yi Changqing among them. Well, to say that they were surrounded and beaten was the lightest. It should be said that they were surrounded and killed in one fell swoop. How would Hang Ghost dare to go over? But opposite him, this one Xingtian's mouth was too vicious. Update complete. Requesting votes. I'll continue writing tomorrow's update. It's also true that we're enemies. However, this is different from everyone joining hands to besiege the hidden dragon martial artist and even killing all of them. Our target, from the beginning to the end, is only Zhuxiaoduo alone. If Zhuxiaoduo appeared now, we would go up and kill him. The people from Hidden Dragon Martial Artist wanted to protect him and started a fierce battle, and we killed them. But now, without Zhuxiaoduo appearing, we directly killed the people from Hidden Dragon Martial Artist. These are two completely different things. The former can be said to be a personal grudge, a personal standpoint. There are rules in the underworld, and King of Hell Palace makes the decisions. The latter is for no reason, and will cause endless trouble. Most importantly, our main purpose here is to offer a reward and not to deal with the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist. This is something that we have to be clear about. The reason for dealing with Zhuxiaoduo is because of the reward from King of Hell Palace. That's why we're here. We can even face the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist for this. But without this premise, directly facing the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist is equivalent to standing on the opposite side of the country. Who can bear the consequences of this? Killing Zhuxiaoduo will at most be chased down by the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist. But killing many of the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist teachers will lead to the pursuit of all the strong people in the country. This is the difference in the results. You Hang Ghost, you're not trying to kill all of us, are you? Hang Ghost's eyes were about to split open, but he couldn't do anything. His face was getting more and more embarrassed. He wanted to leave, but his brother was still in a desperate situation and was still looking at him, although everyone knew that there was no hope. But if he left now, it would be difficult for him to move an inch into Jianghu in the future. Thousands of people were watching with their eyes wide open. Among these thousands of people, other than the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist group, the others were all people with no bottom line. No, when the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist group was dealing with him, they also had no bottom line. If he turned around and left, then this Hang Ghost, his sworn brother, is struggling in a desperate situation, and he turned around and left. It's fine to watch his brother die, but he actually turned around and left. This Hang Ghost, it could be imagined that this kind of talk would definitely spread throughout the world. This kind of result, even if it was a shameless person like Hang Ghost, he would still be forced to death. Your Hidden Dragon Martial Artist student is not here. When Xingtian, why aren't you leaving? Be careful that your disciple is killed. Hang Ghost said viciously. When Xingtian said with a smile, no hurry, no hurry. No matter what, I have to see this big show in first. If I can't see the third brother of the Huangquan 3 ghosts die in front of me, I can't leave no matter what. Such a good show. How can I not enjoy it? Hang Ghost, you also don't want to leave? Don't tell me you also want to be like me, waiting to see the end of this big show? Hang Ghost's clenched teeth voice traveled several miles. When Xingtian, just you wait, I will definitely kill you, drowned Ghost roared. At the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist's side, the teachers all looked at Wen Xingtian with a strange expression. No wonder Zhuxiaoduo's tongue was so sharp, extremely despicable. So this was the root of it. It was all Wen Xingtian's teachings. Really. Like teacher, like disciple, from the same lineage. Now they had finally found the source. TSK, TSK, TSK. When Xingtian, this despicable person, had already reached a certain level, unfathomable, superb, but in the future, they would not dare to provoke him. Even if they did, they would definitely greet him with their hands. When it came to words, he was not good. If when Xingtian knew what others were thinking, he would definitely be dumbfounded. Then, he would remember who he had been infected by. What did it mean by like teacher, like disciple? He had been led astray by that kid. Okay. In this aspect, that kid was the real expert. Well, like teacher, like disciple, was not wrong. On the other side, Hungry Ghost was now on the verge of death. Big brother, second brother, leave. Don't watch me die. I will die miserably. The giant centipede was getting more and more impatient. It raised one of its legs and lashed the four of them with its whip. As it lashed the whip, it straightened its body and looked coldly at the human ants in the distance. Did you see that? If you dare to come over again, you will end up like this. The four people in the centipede's circle struggled to get up. Suddenly, they roared in unison, raised their weapons, and charged toward the giant centipede. This was a true charge to the death. This was a battle without any hope. The giant centipede's two tentacles moved and already tied the four people up. The four of them were already on the verge of death. How could they have any strength? The so-called charge just now was because they knew it was hopeless and did not want to embarrass themselves in front of others. They wanted to die quickly. After being trapped by the two tentacles, the giant centipede stuffed them into its mouth. With a crunch, it had already bitten the four people into two. Then it spat them out. However, the four of them were completely dead. Then the giant centipede straightened its body and turned its head. Its cold eyes continued to look in their direction. Hanged Ghost and Drowned Ghost closed their eyes as their hearts were cut by a knife. Third brother was dead. He died miserably. There was no way to collect his corpse. The giant centipede did not leave and continued to flaunt its strength. Everyone could only watch from afar. Seeing that the four people were dead and that's where Xiaoduo was definitely not nearby, many people turned around and left. After a while, Yi Changqing waved his hand, and the group of people from Hidden Dragon High School turned around and were about to leave. Before, when Xingtian left, he did not forget to call out, "Hanged Ghost, your brother is dead. Don't forget to collect his corpse. Let me tell you, it's fine if you just watch your brother die. The situation is stronger than you, and you can't do anything about it. However, if you don't even want to collect his corpse, I will look down on you from the bottom of my heart. Of course, I have never looked down on you." When Xingtian laughed loudly, "Hanged Ghost, if you don't dare to collect your brother's corpse, I will look down on you even more. However, I believe in you. You will make me look down on you even more." Hanged Ghost directly spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were about to crack as he panted heavily. He could clearly feel that his liver was already swollen from anger. There was actually such a despicable person in this world. This, when Xingtian was simply endless, that these words were clearly saying that he was dead and that he did not dare to collect Hungry Ghost's corpse. However, he seemed like he really did not dare to go to Drowned Ghost, raised his head and looked into the distance. Hungry Ghost's corpse had already been split into two and was silent. His eyes were filled with grief. "Boss, what should we do? Are we really not going to collect third brother's corpse?" Hanged Ghost almost spat out blood again. "With that centipede there, how can we collect it? Won't we die together if we go over?" Drowned Ghost hesitated for a while and said, "Then let's wait for a while. When that centipede leaves, we will go over?" Obviously, Drowned Ghost did not want to be accused of not collecting his brother's corpse. Speaking of which, who would want to carry such a reputation? Chapter 571. It's too late. Third brother was poisoned too deeply. Now that he's gone, his body will turn into pus even faster. There's nothing we can do. Hanged Ghost sighed sadly. Then he patted Drowned Ghost's shoulder and dragged him away forcefully. In the distance behind them, a long laugh sounded. "Ha ha ha, one of the three ghosts is missing today." The boss Hanged Ghost and the second Drowned Ghost left without collecting his body. Jianghu sigh. "It's a long story. Everyone, if you become sworn brothers in the future, remember not to find someone like this." Hanged Ghost finally spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked into the distance with fire shooting out of his eyes. "I'm puzzled. Are you done yet? Isn't it enough for you to say it to my face? We've already gone dozens of miles, and you're still chattering there? When Xingtian, you're actually a fucking woman. Fuck. that the hidden Dragon High School people had walked 200 miles, but when Xingtian was still laughing at the top of his lungs. The others' faces were all twisted. Just a few words and that was it. Why was there no end to it? Speaking of which, everyone was used to being a role model and was used to being a good teacher. They always cherished their reputation and were used to being sanctimonious. They really weren't used to when Xingtian today. But Yi Changqing, who should be speaking the most, didn't stop him, which was rare. Because he knew that when Xingtian was using this method to tell Zhou Xiaoduo, "We're here. There's a lot of people here. If you can't hold on, come over here." But Yi Changqing's heart was heavy now. Just this Centipede Valley incident alone had gathered thousands of people. And this force was the people he had brought with him. They were definitely no match for it. If Zhou Xiaoduo didn't show up, they wouldn't dare to attack the hidden Dragon High School people. But if Zhou Xiaoduo showed up, it would give them a reason to attack. If they didn't show up, they would be Jianghu people facing the government. If they showed up, they would become a group of hunters facing their prey and their prey's bodyguards. Don't underestimate this conceptual shift. The former could mobilize the entire continent to hunt down all the participants, while the latter could only capture the murderer at most. This was a completely different matter. Don't split up to avoid being defeated one by one. Yi Changqing instructed in a low voice. If it really comes to a critical moment, I'll take the 100-fold pill alone and escape with Zhou Xiaoduo. And, at the very least, we need a few people to sacrifice themselves to stop the pursuers. Everyone was expressionless as they lightly nodded their heads. They didn't seem surprised at all. Regarding this point, after seeing today's lineup, everyone was mentally prepared and knew what to expect. It's just death. It's no big deal. Compared to our comrades who were buried on the battlefield, we have already lived for many more years. We are content. When Zhou Xiaoduo came out of the exterminating space pagoda, it was already nighttime. Furthermore, it was only after he had finished compressing his true core strength for the second time. Before he came out, he naturally sent Xiao Long to inquire about the situation. He only came out after confirming that it was safe. How is it? They're all dead. Xiao Long wagged his tail. The 76 people who chased us earlier are all dead. They were all killed by that giant centipede. Zhou Xiaoduo rolled his eyes. I didn't say that. I mean, these 76 people are dead, but where are their space rings? Xiao Long was stunned. He really didn't pay attention to this. Let's go back and take a look. Zhou Xiaoduo was exasperated. Long, let me tell you. In this world, what is the best wealth to make? It's the wealth of war. What is the easiest wealth to make from war? It's the wealth of the dead. What is the least psychological burden to make from the wealth of the dead? It's the wealth of the enemy's dead. You see, these people came to kill me. The reason why they died was largely because of my design. Therefore, their belongings should be my spoils of war. This kind of causality is very reasonable, isn't it? It's a complete waste to ignore it. If I help them digest it, I believe that they will be grateful to me even in the underworld. Xiao Long was suddenly enlightened. He didn't expect his boss to be so compassionate. In order to make the dead feel at ease, he was so considerate. It seems that my thinking is indeed a little narrow-minded. Xiao Long immediately went back and came back after a while. Most of the corpses have decayed, but the rings and other things are still on the ground. Some of them are buried deep in the soil and are scattered. Xiao Long was very observant. That centipede doesn't want these things. There are also many weapons over there. Where's the centipede? Zhou Xiaoduo asked with sparkling eyes. The centipede is still there. It hasn't moved, Xiao Long said. Zhou Xiaoduo was immediately discouraged. What's the use of saying it if it's still there? But I think the centipede is definitely going to leave. It's definitely going to return to the mountain wall. Xiao Long said attentively. That centipede has been guarding the treasure for many years under the mountain wall. It's about to mature, so it will definitely go and guard it at a close distance. After all, this place is more than 200 miles away from the treasure. It won't be at ease, so there's no point in staying here. Zhou Xiaoduo was relieved. He heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. Then I'll wait for a while. Zhou Xiaoduo thought in his heart. There seem to be a lot of good things in this place. There were a few Star Beast kings here, so no one would come here. Moreover, Dada, I seem to have forgotten something important. You mentioned that centipede just now. What is it guarding? Xiaoduo couldn't help but feel curious. Xiao Long was stunned. Then, you want to snatch it too? He would really die if he did. You're thinking too much. I'm not that eager for quick success. Xiaoduo said very innocently. I'm just a little curious. Xiao Long started to fantasize. He said, actually, the thing that the centipede is guarding is really a good thing in the true sense. It's not like the things guarded by tigers and snakes. They're very ordinary. Xiaoduo's eyes lit up like light bulbs. Tigers and snakes also have things guarding them? Xiao Long said, in fact, this kind of star beast king is basically an ordinary star beast at the beginning. It's just that by chance it ate something good, and then it slowly grew up. It's similar to the human beings who got lucky and obtained natural treasures and achieved great things by different means. For example, that saber-winged tiger over there was originally an ordinary saber-winged tiger, but now in its body, there are remnants of the ancient demonic tiger's inner core that hasn't been completely digested. It must have eaten a little bit of the ancient demonic tiger's inner core, so it has today's realm and strength. Xiaoduo said, oh, I see. He had to cooperate. Otherwise, it would be awkward for Xiao Long to talk about it alone, and it would be boring. The reason why it's called a little bit of inner core is because the saber-winged tiger's foundation is shallow. Even the highest level mutated saber-winged tiger can't bear the complete ancient demonic tiger's inner core. That's why only a very small piece can withstand it. The same principle applies to astral beasts. Xiaoduo said yes. Xiao Long said, but just this piece of inner core is enough for this saber-winged tiger to be reborn. It activated the demonic tiger's bloodline and formed the tiger demon's inheritance. I think it must have cultivated some kind of magical power of the demon clan with the help of some fragmented memories in the inner core. As a result, its body became bigger and bigger, and its strength and cultivation also increased. It became the demon king today. Xiaoduo said, yes. Xiaolong, I secretly rolled my eyes. Do you really understand? Yes, yes, yes. What the hell are you saying yes for? But he didn't dare to say this out loud. He just continued to talk. And that Snake King and the Centipede Queen, they basically had the same opportunity. Xiao Long said, as everyone knows, not only did the Demon Clan exist in this continent a long time ago, but the ancient Heavenly Court was also established by the Demon Clan. Back then, the Demon Emperor unified the universe and ruled the world. The entire continent was ruled by the Demon Clan. Those Demon Clan experts naturally emerged one after another and looked down on their peers. Although the Demon Clan separated from the continent and hasn't returned to this day, there are bound to be many undiscovered Demon Clan inheritances on this continent of astral souls, or the remains of the ancient great demon, or some fragmented inner cores. And these are great opportunities for the star beasts on the continent. They are unparalleled fate. As long as you can find them, at the very least, you can improve your cultivation, be reborn, and enter a whole new level. If you're slightly better, you can even activate the ancient great demon's bloodline and obtain the inheritance memories. Cultivating the Demon Clan's cultivation techniques, you can expect to reach the Great Tao. Xiaoduo said, that's right. Xiao Long secretly rolled his eyes again. Star beasts at the Demon King level are usually more willing to wander around. That's because they have innately sharp senses and can sense the remains of their ancient great Demon Clan ancestors. Once such a Demon King suddenly stops at a certain place, there's basically no other reason than that there's something good nearby that it needs. And the things these Demon Kings need are basically the things mentioned above. Xiao Long took a deep breath and said, there are actually 3 Demon Kings in the Star Beast Forest in the Starlight Mountain Range. And they've been here for a long time without leaving. It's inevitable that there's something fishy about it. The sword-winged tiger over there is guarding the remains of a tiger clan ancestor. The remains of the ancestor have merged with the spirit spring and absorbed the moonlight all year round. It's slowly refined and grown into 2 pieces of heavenly tiger moonlight ointment. that was refined from a complete skeleton. This saber-winged tiger cannot directly fuse with and refine it. It can only wait for this heavenly tiger moonlight ointment to ripen and consume it. Using this method, it can obtain the inheritance of the great demon from back then and evolve its bloodline again. And the heavenly tiger moonlight ointment is about to mature. It should be in the next few days. So, that sword-winged tiger over there won't leave no matter what. It won't move even if it's struck by lightning. Zhuxiao's eyes flickered. He muttered, "Heavenly tiger moonlight ointment." Hearing the name already made his heart itch. It was very itchy. Chapter 572. Although from the name, he knew that he would not be able to use it. However, this desire to have it, to own it, and to sell it for money was out of his control. What a pity! Zhuxiao sighed gloomily. Heavenly tiger moonlight ointment. How infuriating! Why not the heavenly being moonlight ointment? As for the other side, the white snake is guarding something similar. However, it's the soul crystal of an ancient great demon snake. It's a spirit plant fruit that has been nurtured by the earth chi for so many years, the snake soul fruit. It also matures during this time. After the snake king consumes it, the effect is similar to that of the saber-winged tiger consuming the heavenly tiger moonlight ointment. This will also be one of the few great opportunities in the lives of the two demon kings. Do you think the two demon kings will easily leave the place they have guarded for so many years? Xiaolong sighed and said, "However, the two things that the Tiger King and the Snake King are guarding are not as valuable as the one that the centipede is guarding." "Oh? What do you mean?" Zhuxiao asked. "In the mountain wall that the centipede is leaning against, there is a complete corpse of a one-horned flood dragon." Xiaolong was a little envious and said with glowing eyes, "That is the corpse of a flood dragon that has awakened the bloodline of a true dragon. It is only one step away from the final transformation to grow two horns on its head and transform into a true dragon. The most important thing is that its inner core is intact. As for creatures like the centipede, it has the bloodline of the dragon clan. However, it is very shallow and is not very useful. Even if the centipede king evolves over the years and improves the bloodline of the true dragon, it is still not useful. And this flood dragon corpse has been sealed here for many years. It is nourished by the chi of heaven and earth and gradually produced 3 dragon soul ginsengs. Now the dragon soul ginsengs are still in the transformation stage. It is symbolized by a ball of rolling mist. When the moon is full and the moon is in the sky, the dragon soul will participate. At that moment, it will transform and condense into a substance. And at that time, it can be consumed. This centipede has been guarding here all this time, waiting for that day. As long as it consumes it, it will be able to activate the thin dragon god bloodline in its body. After that, it will accumulate and continuously awaken its bloodline. With its current foundation, it is not impossible for it to truly transform into a true dragon in the future." Xiaolong's words were full of admiration. The dragon soul ginseng is so awesome that it can be used repeatedly? Zhuxiao was completely shocked. Of course. 3. Zhuxiao's eyes were like bells. His eyes widened. Not only are there 3, but the inner core of the flood dragon's corpse is still there. After these 3 mature, as long as they accumulate enough spirit chi, they will be able to continue growing. Xiaolong was a little greedy. It's really hard to say exactly how many times it can grow. Long, tell me honestly, is this dragon soul ginseng useful to you? Zhuxiao touched his chin. "It's useful," Xiaolong said, "but I'm a luck dragon. No matter what, I can't absorb the power of the spiritual medicine or the bloodline. What I can absorb is the true dragon luck attached to the spiritual medicine, which can accelerate my growth." "Is that thing useful to humans?" Zhuxiao's eyes lit up as he asked. "It's useful too. Although humans can't awaken the true dragon bloodline or the special magical powers of the dragon clan, it can increase their cultivation and strengthen their physique. The dragon soul part can also strengthen astral souls." Xiaolong pondered and said, A dragon soul ginseng can increase the cultivation of the person who consumes it by at least 2,000 years. If it's used to refine pills, it can also divide the medicinal power and slowly increase it. Zhuo Xiaoduo was thoughtful. In that case, if he took that ginseng back, first, he would let Xiao Long absorb its luck. Then, whether it was refining pills or eating it directly, he would benefit greatly. This was a double benefit, a great benefit. If that was the case, wouldn't it be a waste to let the centipede use this thing? Not to mention that the centipede was so ugly. How could it be worthy of such a strange thing? Xiaolong stole a glance at Zhuo Xiaoduo and murmured, "This dragon soul ginseng's ability to increase one's cultivation base is different from those pills that recover one's cultivation base. Recovering one's cultivation base is limited to these, so it can only recover this much. But the dragon soul ginseng increases at the original high point. It's a different situation." Hiss, hiss, hiss. Zhuo Xiaoduo began to suck in cold air like a snake. He felt his scalp go numb. "I don't want to listen anymore. If I listen anymore, I won't be able to sleep. Go and see if the centipede has left. Get what you can get first. We'll talk about the rest later." After drooling for a long time, Zhuo Xiaoduo finally suppressed the greed in his heart with difficulty. This centipede really couldn't be provoked. Zhuo Xiaoduo, you can't be provoked. You can't be provoked. Zhuo Xiaoduo kept reminding himself. He twisted his legs, twisted his arms, and bit his lips. Finally, he woke up. The most important thing now was to get what he could get first. As for the rest, he would think about it later. It was not until nighttime that Xiao Long came back to report. That hateful centipede had finally returned to the bottom of the cliff. During this time, Zhuo Xiaoduo took apart a lot of clothes, countless thin threads, and changed them in a Xiao silk rope that was more than 100 meters long. Zhuo Xiaoduo was very cautious. If a worker wants to do a good job, he must first sharpen his tools. Zhuo Xiaoduo carefully rubbed the silk rope, making sure that every thin rope was slender but flexible. Don't hate the tedious things. Don't think it's too much. There's a great demon king over there. He can easily blow this silk rope. That's why we need to make a few more, just in case. Don't be impatient. There are 76 space rings over there. There's a huge amount of wealth in those 76 space rings. Just those few god-reigning cultivators alone are extremely rich. Zhuo Xiaoduo's expression was solemn, and his voice was serious. Xiao Long was a little confused. He said, "Boss you, who are you talking to? You look like you're trying to persuade me, but I don't need you to persuade me. I'm talking to myself. Who do you think I'm talking to?" Zhuo Xiaoduo's face was full of annoyance. "Try it. You have to take apart a few sweaters, and then you have to connect more than 100 meters long silk rope. Try it and see how complicated it is. Damn it. If I hadn't been doing this work for myself, persuading with all my heart, persuading with reason, moving with emotion, enticing with benefits, and threatening with power, I would have quit long ago. Is this even a job for humans?" Zhuo Xiaoduo looked up at the sky and sighed. "This really isn't a job for humans. Why didn't I prepare some sky silk, ice silk, soft silk? I could have prepared a few kinds of random ones. There's no need to be so fragmented." After he finished speaking, his face was full of sadness. "Maybe we don't need so many. We can get them all back with just one silk rope." Xiao Long comforted him. "But what if we can't? If we lose half a space ring because of one silk rope, I won't be able to sleep. My heart will ache." Zhuo Xiaoduo said sternly, "Think about it. Think about those priceless spatial rings lying in the mud all by themselves. No one knows about its rich contents. I feel that it's not worth it. I feel wrong for it. My heart aches, my heart aches. I can't bear it." Xiao Long didn't say anything. This was simply a money grubber. He was speechless. He was really speechless. Let him be. Is Centipede gone? He's gone. He confirmed it 3 times. Then let's go too. Let's go. Zhuo Xiaoduo was ready to set off in high spirits. Now was the time when no one dared to go over. Even if the other 2 of the 3 ghosts of Netherworld wanted to collect the corpse of Hungry Ghost, they wouldn't dare to come over at this time. Correspondingly, it was also the time when Centipede's vigilance was at its lowest. Besides, if he went over alone with a low cultivation level, he would be the least likely person to arouse Centipede's anger and interest. Right, that it was still the same tunnel? Zwishaduo carefully went in and took a roundabout route like a burrowing mouse. The tunnel had been dug a long time ago, so he was naturally familiar with it. Even though it had been collapsed by landmines, the foundation was still there. After sneaking for 2 hours, he arrived at his destination. Strictly speaking, the collapsed tunnel didn't affect Zwishaduo at all. On the contrary, it was more convenient for him. His entire body was wriggling gently in the messy soil as he floated upwards. His soft body wriggled here and there like a snake. In the collapsed underground, he slowly but persistently crawled upward, fighting for that wisp of golden wind. Zwishaduo took a longer time to crawl to the surface than when he came. It took him 4 hours. Finally, he was 50 feet away from the surface. His head was full of soft mud that had just collapsed. Zwishaduo gasped for breath. After all, he had been doing this for 6 hours. How could he bear it if he didn't have a strong waist? On the ground, in the mud, or just on the surface, one space ring after another sparkled. As for the human corpses, under the strong effect of Centipede's poison, and after such a long time, they had already turned into thick water and disappeared without a trace. Under the cliff, the Centipede lifted its head. Its cold eyes were filled with impatience. Another little worm came over. Looking at its movement trajectory, it was like a snake. Its movement trajectory was actually similar to his own habits. He really wanted to ignore it. But why was this little thing pupa not done yet? Was the speed of the snake clan so slow? It was simply useless. What was the point of living if it crawled so slowly? One of its antennae whipped the ground with a snap. Suddenly, the ground shook. The annoying little snake stopped moving at once, as if it was frightened by itself. However, after only 10 minutes, the snake started moving again. Pupa dot crack. Another whip. It stopped moving again. After a while, it started again. It happened again and again. Centipede Demon King almost laughed out of anger. Chapter 573. The Centipede King was exasperated. You're not done yet? Why are you so persistent? Forget it, I'll let you out. But who would have thought that this abominable snake would actually stop when it was about to reach the ground? Fine, you can stop now. Nothing happened after half an hour. The Centipede King was so annoyed that it couldn't be bothered with it anymore. At this moment, a thin thread quietly appeared on the ground. It slowly slithered all the way to the nearest space ring. The whole process was silent, like a hidden trace. The Centipede King laid its head on its body and pretended to be asleep. It didn't notice this at all. The movement was too small. The silk thread finally reached its position and slowly wrapped itself around a spatial ring that was buried in the soil. Then, it slowly retracted. Whoosh! 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 The Centipede King raised its head and shook its neck, then lowered it again. Zwishaduo concentrated on pulling back. He was very excited. It was a subtle feeling of catching a big fish. His hands were very steady, and he did not slack off. However, his heart was trembling, and his eyes were filled with nervousness. Closer. The centipede didn't move. It was within 30 meters. It was within 20 meters. 10 meters. Pa. The thread broke. The space ring lay alone 10 meters away. The giant centipede accurately flicked one of its toes and stopped the space ring 10 meters away. Zwishaduo broke out in cold sweat. Fuck, what's going on? Was I discovered? This is only the first space ring, and I've already been discovered. What should I do? Do I have to give up? Zwishaduo didn't dare to move for a long time. He was afraid that the next moment he would be killed by the sharp claws. After a full hour, the centipede still didn't move. The sky was already bright. The greedy Zwishaduo didn't want to give up. He used another thread and extended it 10 meters away. It had just wrapped around the space ring when it broke again. Fuck! Zwishaduo was pissed. You're awesome. You're eyeing this one? Then I'll choose another one that's more hidden. Thus, half an hour later, another thread that was more than 100 meters long quietly emerged from the ground and wrapped around another spatial ring in the soil. Pull back. Pull back. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh that he was getting closer and closer. Only 10 meters left. I'm about to succeed. Zwishauduo held his breath. Pa. The line was cut. The line was cut again. Seeing this, Zwishauduo almost collapsed. If you don't want me to move, then just don't let me move. I went through so much trouble and finally got within 10 meters of you before you cut me off. This is the last time you cut me off. What are you trying to do? Are you toying with me? The centipede really didn't care about these rings, but it was really bored right now. The spiritual medicine was about to ripen, and it couldn't sleep. What if it fell asleep? It just so happened that this little thing was causing trouble. Therefore, it squinted its eyes and teased it casually to pass the time. Plus, it was payback for being annoyed for half the night. It could tell that this little ant wasn't a little snake. It was a human ant like before. This ant was obviously interested in these small circles. It wanted them, but it was reluctant to give them up and kept trying. Although I have no use for these things and don't care about them, I won't let you get them so easily. Zwishauduo was extremely depressed in his heart. 2 rings in a row had been intercepted 10 meters away, and both of them were stuck at such a close distance. He could see everything, but he couldn't get his hands on it. This kind of feeling of being on fire in his heart was simply too disgusting. He wanted to leave this sad place far away, but he couldn't bear to. It was such a good opportunity, with a lot of wealth in front of him. How could he leave now? The centipede had only cut the rope twice in a row. It was obvious that he had noticed him, but he didn't do anything else. Obviously, he didn't want to bother with him because he wasn't a threat. But what's the meaning of this? Are you kidding me? Zwishauduo frowned and thought for a long time. Finally, he couldn't suppress his greed and decided to try again. It was the last time. Yet another thread began to spread out bit by bit. The target for the 3rd ring was a very obvious, sparkling spatial ring. The silk thread was hooked. He dragged it back. Whoosh, close. Only a few steps left. Only 12 meters left. He stopped. Well, there was no movement, so he continued to drag. 9 meters, 8 meters. He got it. The centipede didn't even bother with the 3rd ring. It was easily taken by Zwishauduo. Could it be that this centipede doesn't care? Zwishauduo muttered in his heart. Since he wanted to try again, he would continue to try. The 4th ring hooked, dragged. Whoosh. He got it. The 5th ring, he got it. The 6th ring. Closer, closer. Only 10 meters left. Snap. The thread was broken. This made Zwishauduo feel so uncomfortable that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. If he didn't succeed in the previous attempts, it proved that the Centipede King was very possessive. It didn't allow others to covet its trophies, regardless of whether they were useful or not. If that was the case, Zwishauduo would have no choice but to leave. If he continued to provoke the other party, who knows when a fatal disaster would befall him. However, the current situation was that after a total of 6 attempts, he had successfully obtained 3 of them, but the other 3 were all stopped 10 meters away from him. Is there something wrong with this centipede? He didn't want to leave. He didn't dare to go out and take more. What was he trying to do? Whatever. If you want to play, I'll play with you. Zwishauduo made up his mind and stretched out the silk thread one by one. Zwishauduo spent 2 nights and 1 day searching for 76 rings. 36 of them fell into Zwishauduo's pocket. As for the other 40, they all stopped 10 meters away from him. They were all gathered together and piled up into a small mountain of rings. The interspatial rings were sparkling, continuously provoking Zwishauduo's greedy nerves. I'm going crazy. I'm going to die. Zwishauduo felt so depressed that he had nowhere to vent. He was about to explode. This centipede is too despicable. The mountain of gold is right in front of me, but I can't get it. What kind of feeling is this? What should I do? I'm waiting online. It's urgent. Just as Zwishauduo was burning with anxiety and cursing the centipede's ancestors, the sound of something rushing through the air suddenly came from above. A ghostly figure rushed down at an astonishing speed, faster than lightning. His target was the small pile of interspatial rings on the ground. It turned out that Zwishauduo was not the only one who was thinking about this pile of rings. Sure enough, It was true that money could move people's hearts. Many people were willing to risk their lives for it. Thousands of people gathered here, and 99% of them were bounty hunters. There were more than 70 experts whose interspatial rings would not melt. How could they, who worked for money, forget? They had been lurking outside for a long time, but they did not dare to act rashly. After confirming that the centipede had gone back, many people quietly crept over. They came over to take a look. The rings were actually piled up into a pile, just like that, piled up messily on the ground, sparkling. What's the meaning of this? At least the centipede didn't want these things, right? Suddenly, someone couldn't hold it in anymore and rushed down. Just as this person's hand was about to grab the ring, a long tentacle suddenly shot over and pierced the person's lower abdomen with irresistible force. Following an earth-shattering scream, the tentacle retracted, bringing the person with it. That person dared to pull the whiskers out of the tiger's mouth. He was also a person with a high cultivation. He was injured but not dead. He screamed all the way, which was tragic. Unfortunately, no matter how he begged for mercy and swore, it was of no use. Soon, there was silence. With a crisp sound, another interspatial ring shot out from the darkness and accurately landed on the pile of rings. Thus, the 40 rings became 41 rings. Those who were ready to make a move outside all felt their hearts stop beating, and their heads were covered in cold sweat. Zwishao's heart almost stopped beating as well, and his head was covered in cold sweat. Damn it, that was a cloud transformation realm cultivator, right? Was it? Gone just like that? Zwishao's little face was pale with fright. Forget it, I don't want the rest, okay? I already have 36 rings. It's not a small number. More is more. However, just as Zwishaoduo had the intention to retreat and even put it into action, he wriggled his body and quietly moved downwards and backwards. However, just as he moved 3 meters downwards and 1 meter backwards, he suddenly felt that his body was confined and he couldn't move at all. A ferocious and vicious aura had firmly bound him. You want to leave? No way. I haven't played enough. Zwishaoduo felt cold all over. He only felt that the strand of energy that was entangling him was both unfamiliar and familiar. His mind was blank. He knew that he shouldn't be so greedy. Now, he was done for. The centipede queen was a little depressed now. It was extremely bored, and it had already fallen in love with the feeling of the long rope quietly stretching out. It was like teasing a mouse, and when you carefully and fearfully pulled back, when you were about to reach it, it suddenly cut off the fragile rope. This feeling could only be described with one word: cool. Again, cut it off again. Happy. The centipede queen observed the depressed expression on the little mouse's face with its divine sense. It was angry, but didn't dare to speak, that the centipede queen felt that it could play like this for 8 to 10 years. At least before the treasure it was guarding appeared, it didn't have to worry about loneliness. However, just as it was getting better and better and was about to develop a new round of fun games, another ant rushed down and wanted to steal its source of happiness. How can this be? Fuck. This is simply courting death. Since you're courting death, I'll just poke you to death with my tentacles. You're thinking too much, aren't you? You want to steal from me? You want to steal from me? Then try it with your life. However, after stabbing this fellow to death, the centipede queen discovered a very frightening thing. This sudden change frightened the little mouse below. He actually stopped dragging it with the rope and wanted to run away. The centipede queen couldn't help but feel anxious. Chapter 574. What am I going to do if you run away? It's not easy for me to find someone to relieve my boredom. How can I just leave like that? I've been here for so many years. I'm so bored, okay? A surge of demonic power gushed out and directly imprisons Zwishaoduo. Don't go. Play with me. When I'm done, I'll stab you to death. Zwishaoduo didn't want to play anymore. He didn't want to be stabbed to death even if he didn't play. I'm here to make a fortune from the dead. I don't want to become a dead man. However, no matter how many thoughts he had, he couldn't put them into action. He couldn't move at all. The centipede queen imprisoned him for a while and then released him. Zwishaoduo felt that he was free. He wanted to escape, but he was imprisoned again as soon as he moved. Zwishaoduo was dumbfounded by this series of events. Fuck. What the hell are they trying to do? Is it toying with me? Is it threatening me? Or is it trying to torture me and ravage me? The demonic power was gone again. Zwishaoduo moved, and the demonic power came again. It was gone again, and it came again. Zwishaoduo was so scared that his guts almost split into 8 pieces. Boss, please let me go. I won't come again. I won't dare to do it again. However, the Centipede Queen obviously didn't hear Zwishaoduo's words. Even if it did, it wouldn't let him go. They had different goals. Of course, the strong would be respected. Well, the symbol of the strong being respected was vividly displayed at this moment. The two sides were in a stalemate. Zwishaoduo didn't dare to move. He was afraid that the Centipede Queen would attack him. The Centipede Queen was waiting for Zwishaoduo to move, and then it would move. After a long time, neither side moved. The Centipede Queen was also anxious, so it demonstrated. A surge of demonic power surrounded Zwishaoduo. Then, Zwishaoduo realized that his demonic power had taken control of his hand. Then, he grabbed a broken rope beside his hand and stretched it out with a jerky motion that he hooked a ring. Then, he dragged it back. Looking at the ring that suddenly appeared in front of him, Zwishaoduo was dumbfounded. What's the meaning of this? You're not letting me go because you want to give it to me? Then, he saw that the remaining 40 rings in front of him were all moved away with a whoosh. That's right, it was moved away. He moved more than 100 meters away. It was still a pile. The demonic power that was entangling him also disappeared. The Centipede Queen watched the commotion with anticipation. This rat should understand, right? I've already made it so obvious. Zwishaoduo was stunned for a long time. He grabbed the ring that the Centipede Queen had hooked from the rope and looked at it for a long time before he finally understood. Damn it. Does she want me to secretly hook the ring with the silk thread again? Are you playing? It was not that Zwishaoduo was not smart or sensible. At this moment, if it were anyone else, it would be hard for them to guess what the Centipede Queen was thinking. Wasn't this too weird? Zwishaoduo wanted to cry, but had no tears. I snuck all the way here just to make a toy for you? This was a disguised version of the cat catching the rat. No, it was the cat playing with the rat. After playing with it to its heart's content, it would crush it to death with a slap. At this moment, there was a whooshing sound in the sky. Another 2 figures, one on the left and one on the right, rushed to the pile of rings on the ground at the same time. Separated by more than 30 meters, 2 faintly discernible threads were flung out at the same time. This time, the people who attacked had learned their lesson. We won't go down. We'll just sweep past and use the flexible silk to plunder a wave and leave. We'll plunder as much as we can. These 2 people's configuration was much better than Zwishaoduo's. They used spiritual silk, which was fine, thin, and extremely flexible. It was an excellent material that could carry 1,000 pounds of weight. However, the 2 tentacles followed, and they were faster than lightning. Papa! The 2 threads that looked like ordinary threads were cut off. Then poof poof the 2 tentacles stabbed into the abdomen of the 2 people at the same time. Blood spurted out violently. Then, just like before, the 2 people returned with the tentacles. Then, with 2 crisp sounds, 2 more space rings were added to the pile of rings. 40 rings. First, it became 41 rings. After giving one to Zwishaoduo, it became 40 rings. Now, there were 2 more rings, and it became 42 rings. Zwishaoduo's eyes widened when he saw this, because he was imprisoned by his demonic power again. Not only was he imprisoned, but he also raised his hand and slapped himself twice. The sound was crisp and clear. Of course, it was the Centipede King who slapped him. Little guy, hurry up and start. If you don't start, I'll hit you again. Zwishaoduo wanted to cry, but had no tears. He had to force himself on her and continue his great undertaking of collecting rings. Unfortunately, I have a long-term concern. Even if I prepared a lot of silk threads after 2 nights and 1 day, I've already used half of them. How long can the rest last? So Zwishaoduo held his breath and laid down on the ground. Then, he pretended to be concentrating and sneakily extended a thread. Using his spiritual power, he made the most exquisite microcontrol and extended it towards the pile of rings 100 meters away. That the silk thread swam and swam, extending forward bit by bit, seeing that the fun game had started again, and that the silk thread was more agile than before. The Centipede King was very satisfied. Just like that, it continued like that. Then it squinted its eyes and curled up its mountain-like body. It put on a lazy look as if it didn't see anything. A lazy look that, as expected, the silk thread caught one of the rings and began to drag it back. Drag, 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 dragged out when it reached a distance of 10 meters. Pa! It broke. The Centipede King howled excitedly to the sky. Just like that, come again, come again. Zhuxiaoduo only felt an indescribable tightness in his chest, and it was difficult for him to calm down. Damn, it's really like that I can fucking hear the excitement and joy in your howl. A whole 4 hours. Zhuxiaoduo tried to steal it, but he was intercepted. In between, it didn't seem like he didn't succeed once. Instead, he succeeded 8 times. However, that was because the Centipede Queen purposely let him get it. It was to give him some benefits. Without benefits, he wouldn't have the motivation to continue. On the other side, people kept coming over, using all kinds of methods, hoping to get a few rings. However, all the people who tried ended up the same, and then contributed a lot of rings to the pile. Zhuxiaoduo felt very strange at this moment, and it was filled with an almost absurd feeling. Originally, there were 40 rings, and he had stolen here and there. Now he had obtained 9 rings, but the pile of rings didn't decrease, and instead increased by 12. Now there were 52 rings. This Zhao's pile of rings was like a money tree, constantly multiplying and increasing in value. That the Centipede King had been lonely for too long, and it had never played such a fun game. Now, as long as it saw the silk thread, it was completely focused. I can only drag it to a distance of 10 meters. A little less, a little more, even if it's just a centimeter, it'll be my failure. The failed one will naturally be taken away by that little mouse. But it'll be my success if it's cut off at a distance of 10 meters. Then, it gathered 10 rings, and with a whoosh, it moved them all back. Such a cycle was truly filled with joy. He was elated and never tired of it. It was so happy that it never got tired of it. However, Zhuxiaoduo didn't feel happy at all. On the contrary, he felt very bad, and he lost control of his negative emotions, which were rare for him to have control of himself. He knew nothing about how the Centipede King played, and all the things he got were the so-called benefits, or even illusory illusions. After all, with the Centipede King's strength, it only needed a thought and a tentacle to attack, and he would die, and his Dao would disappear. Zhuxiaoduo, who was shrouded in the shadow of death, didn't notice that a centimeter more or less was a centimeter less. He was really scared out of his wits now, thinking that the other party was deliberately playing with him, and letting him get those rings was just to unlock a few more moves. Zhuxiaoduo was trapped here, unable to move, and played the game over and over again, almost like a machine. Although the rewards were getting more and more plentiful, he couldn't move at all. If he made the slightest move, he would be restrained for a moment as a warning. Although there were many people who coveted the Centipede King and the pile of small rings, and many people were risking their lives, there were even more people who were working hard to find Zhuxiaoduo. However, the more they searched, the more curious they became. Where is this Zhuxiaoduo hiding? Not only were the assassins puzzled by this question, but even Yi Chongqing and the others were also puzzled. With that kid's troublemaking personality, how could he be so quiet? He lured 76 people over, and all of a sudden, 76 of them died. How big of a commotion was that? Based on the current situation, at least for now, he should be fine and safe. This was basically confirmed. But where did he hide after that? And even now, how could he hide so well? It's been 3 days, and there's been no movement at all? This is really too surprising. But everyone was sure of one thing, and that was that Zhuxiaoduo hadn't left yet. He must still be in this area. This was also confirmed without a doubt. The Starlight Mountain Range, since it was called a mountain range, then it was an entire mountain range with a radius of no less than 10,000 li. Zhuxiaoduo could casually hide anywhere. and it would take them half a day to find him. It was actually very normal that they couldn't find him now. Another scream rang out from the same place. Over this period of time, there had been many similar screams coming out from that realm. Another money grubber. When Xingtian clicked his tongue twice. It's alls was Xiaoduo's fault. Zhang Xiaofei. One, I don't like what you're saying. How can this be Zhuo Xiaoduo's fault? It's obviously those people who targeted Zhuo Xiaoduo for the bounty. Zhuo Xiaoduo set up a trap and sent so many people over to protect himself, and they were all killed by the Centipede King. If it weren't for their greed, would they have ended up in such a miserable state? And those dead people now, weren't they also greedy for money? They wanted to collect the space rings left on the ground by the dead. Star beasts wouldn't use such things, and they don't need them either. They became trash just like that. Those who want to take advantage of them have to try. Chapter 575. I don't know what the Centipede King has done to have such a murderous nature. Those who seek riches can't get it. Instead, they left their rings there. But no matter what, this has nothing to do with Xiaoduo. It's just a setup. Up until now, including the 76 people, more than 130 people have died there. Moreover, as long as those rings are there, more and more people will go there, hoping for a fluke. These people who come here, even if they complete the mission, only a few of them will be able to claim the bounty in the end. Even if only one person gets it, the others will have to return empty-handed. But who would be willing to accept this? Now, there are so many unowned space rings here. If you can get a hold of one, you'll have 2 sleeves full of gold. But to get a hold of one, you'll have to gamble with your life. The Centipede King's move is really sharp. It's simply besieging the point to beat the reinforcements, inviting them to fall into the trap. Zhang Xiaofei was very impressed when Xingtian snorted and said, "Besieging the point to beat the reinforcements, inviting them to fall into the trap? Zhang Xiaofei, you're just uncultured. You still need to use such elegant words? This is clearly a pile of shit placed there, attracting countless flies to buzz around." Zhang Xiaofei's martial strength was far inferior to Wen Xingtian's. He was scolded badly, but he didn't dare to say anything. A female teacher retched and frowned, saying that it's a piece of fly paper is more elegant than what you said. Teacher 1, you still have a nerve to say that Zhang Xiaofei is not elegant. But this setup is really good. Without using a single soldier, without any effort, more than 100 people were slaughtered. The level of the rewards is also very high. Other than the hungry ghost of the Huangquan 3 ghosts, there are also several other god-reigning cultivators. This is really good luck. But speaking of which, with so many space rings in front of them, how many people wouldn't be tempted? These bounty hunters in the pugilistic world, which one of them doesn't love money? Even I. As when Xingtian spoke, his voice suddenly became softer and softer, and his face instantly turned pale. Just then, Yi Changqing turned his head and met with Xingtian's eyes. Both of them saw the same word in each other's eyes. Oh no. When it came to love money, there were not many people who could compare to Zhuo Xiaoduo. Others might not know, but how could Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian, who knew Zhuo Xiaoduo better than anyone else, not know Zhuo Xiaoduo's bad character? This guy was even willing to cheat a few $100s. Now that there was such a huge pile of spatial rings over there, how could he not go and take them? He was willing to leave? What a joke! With so many interspatial rings, even if a rope was tied around Zhuo Xiaoduo's neck and 100,000 cows were used to pull him away, he would not leave. However, there was an extremely terrifying Centipede King there. Yi Changqing's face turned pale. Even if Yi Changqing went up against that Demon King-level centipede, it would be a waste. The two of them finally understood. If Li Qinglong, who knew Zhuo Xiaoduo the best, was here, Li Qinglong would be able to react the moment the 76 people were lured over. But now that they understood, it only made them even more terrified and scared. Damn it! Yi Changqing was furious. He pointed at Wen Xingtian and suddenly scolded, "What the hell did you teach?" Wen Xingtian hung his head, feeling extremely wronged. Did I teach him to be like this? This is a secret technique passed down in my family a stinginess that is integrated into my bloodline. Let's go back and take a look. Yi Changqing made a prompt decision. We can't all go back. When Xingtian hurriedly said, if we all go back, so many people will definitely know that we found something and speculate where Xiaoduo is now. No matter how he is now, his location will be exposed. Yi Changqing thought about it and agreed with him. So, he divided everyone into a few small groups. Everyone pretend to be searching in different directions. Pay attention, listen to my long whistle. Once you hear it, gather at the centipede immediately. Understood. Groups of people split up and left. Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian formed a group and flew toward the centipede anxiously. They knew that the situation had come to an end and thought that Xiaoduo had left that troublesome place long ago. They had traveled more than 1,000 miles in a short time. If they wanted to rush back now, they would not be able to do it in a short time. Not to mention Yi Wen and Wen Xingtian. Moreover, they could not rush. They had to pretend to be searching anxiously along the way that the two of them flew quickly. Suddenly, they saw a figure in front of them. He laughed and said, Brother Yi, long time no see. Yi Changqing didn't even bother to pay attention to him. He and Wen Xingtian whistled through the air and shouted, Tian Wu Jiang, you dare to follow me? Believe it or not, I will cut you in half. Before he finished speaking, the two of them had already disappeared. Behind them, only Tian Wujiang was left with a pale face. Damn it, you were so arrogant after becoming an official. I just came out to say hello. Look at you, old man. You actually said that you want to kill me. Damn you. You are ruthless. I can't beat you. Then I will go to the other side and search. Tian Wujiang cursed Yi Changqing in his heart. However, his actions were very honest. He knew very well that Yi Changqing's heart was burning with anger. If he chased after him, he would really be able to kill him with one sword. Even if he killed him, it would be a waste of effort. Apparently, he didn't care about life or death at all. It was said that there was something wrong with his heart for many years. Normally speaking, he cherished his life even more than most people and would do his best to avoid fighting. But now that he was out in the Starlight Mountain Range, he had gone all out on multiple occasions. So far, more than 100 people had been killed by Yi Changqing. The number of people killed was almost comparable to the Centipede King. In other words, the space rings of more than 100 people all belonged to the Martial Hidden Dragon School. Not to mention the enemies killed by the other teachers of the Martial Hidden Dragon School. It could be imagined that the Martial Hidden Dragon School could be said to be the school with the most gains. Saying that it had a huge amount of wealth was modest. If you have this kind of ability, why don't you go rob people instead of being a headmaster? Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian swaggered past. From beginning to end, no one dared to stop them. Those who had the ability to stop them did not want to cause trouble. Those who did not dare to stop them naturally did not dare to stop them. On the contrary, Wen Xingtian was angry. Along the way, when he saw people searching for him, he took out his butcher's sword and went down to kill without caring about anything else. As he went back and forth, he handed over 30 space rings to Yi Changqing. Yi Changqing was not satisfied. Why are there only 30 space rings after killing 50 people? Wen Xingtian almost vomited blood. These are all my personal gains. I am already very selfless to hand over 30 space rings now. Don't I have to leave some money for my retirement? Yi Changqing expressed, what kind of life do you want to live as a 10,000-year-old single dog? Quickly hand over all of them. When Xingtian cursed and handed over another 10 space rings. He refused to hand over the rest no matter what. I still have a class of students. When they graduate, I should give them some souvenirs. In the face of such a murderous star, all the bounty hunters who came basically hid when they saw people from the Hidden Dragon Academy. They had to hide. This group of people killed people on sight. The Hidden Dragon Academy was very poor. Now that they had a chance to blatantly amass wealth, how could they let it go? The moment they charged up, they immediately engaged in battle. There wasn't even a single word of disagreement. But the current situation was here. If they killed you, it would be called suppressing bandits. But if you killed them, it would be a reaction. He was so unreasonable. If Xiaoduo came out everyone would logically swarm up and kill people from the Hidden Dragon Academy. That would be called doing it because of the bounty. The meaning would be completely different. The name would be completely different. Of course, the consequences would be completely different. Everyone was clear about this point, but the biggest problem now was Zhuo did not appear. If the target did not appear, they could not provoke this group of lunatics. Otherwise, they would die in vain, and there would be endless trouble after the other party died, as Zhuo was making ropes. It was rare that the Centipede Queen was in such a good mood that it was actually willing to give Zhuo some leisure time. The more than 100 ropes that he had forcefully convinced himself to make were all gone now. Not a single one was left, although Zhuo had brought out a lot of clothes. Even so, he had already started to dismantle the most expensive female clothes, but he did not know what else he could use up if he had already used up the last female clothes that Xiaolong stood by the side, at his wit's end, unable to do anything. It was really just a ball of air without a physical body, so it could not do anything. It could only watch as Xiaoduo was imprisoned by the centipede. The centipede was interested because it felt that it was even more interesting. The main reason was that the threads used now were of different colors. There were many differences in tone. The moment it entered the eyes, it was naturally very different. This line stretched out while a white line, another, wow, a red line, and another, wow, a yellow line. So interesting, pa, break, pa, break again. So satisfying, roar, roar, roar. During this period, there were still many people rushing down from the sky from time to time, trying to test it with their lives. Unfortunately, the results were regrettable that the centipede had 2 antennae and 1,000 legs. It moved as fast as lightning. No, it was definitely faster than lightning. Puff, puff, puff. Those who dared to act rashly would all stay here. What was there to be surprised about? Seeing that more and more people were tearing, Zhuo wanted to cry, but had no tears. Now, he had as many as 81 rings in his hands. It was even more than the 76 rings from before. However, the small pile on the ground did not decrease. Instead, it increased to 130 rings. No one would believe him even if he bragged about it. I went there for the 76 rings. Then after I went there, I stole 36 rings, and there were 40 rings left. But when I stole 70 rings, there were 80 rings left. When I stole 81 rings, there were 130 rings left. People who heard him would probably ask, "Who is your math teacher? Why are you so insensitive to numbers?" Even if it was taught by a physical education teacher, it would not be so unreliable, right? Chapter 576. The centipede was so addicted to playing that he even left the mountain wall he was guarding and focused all of his mental strength on this side. Right now, he was lying in ambush in a large pit not far from the ring. This is too fun. I want to play for a while longer. I want to play to my heart's content. At this moment, another figure rushed down. The wind whistled as he came at an incredible speed. The speed of his movement technique was unprecedentedly fast. The centipede kicked out as usual. With a loud boom, that person roared angrily. His body was sent flying several hundred feet in the air. However, he was the only one alive so far. The only survivor. What was more, the centipede's enormous body also paused for a moment after the collision. This result shocked the centipede queen. Fuck, an expert has come from the side of the ants? Therefore, the next confrontation was a two-legged attack. With another boom, that person was sent flying again. However, this time he did not land. Instead, he left without looking back. Although the person was powerful, he was still no match for the centipede queen. If he was not careful, he might even fall into the centipede queen's hands. There was still no hope for him to obtain the many space rings underground, so he retreated. However, none of the onlookers knew who this expert was. However, after witnessing such a high-level confrontation, no one dared to act rashly. The scene fell into a temporary silence. Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian also secretly came over during this time. After witnessing this short but explosive confrontation, they gained a better understanding of the centipede queen's shocking strength. The two of them did not dare to get too close. They tried their best to stay invisible and turn their bodies into clouds. They stayed close to the ground and floated forward. Finally, they stopped on a small protruding hill. They were about 2,000 meters away, but they did not dare to go any further. At this time, the poisonous mist began to spread again, invading every trace of the air. If they continued to move forward and hid for a long time, there was no need to talk about fighting. Even the poisonous mist would not be able to withstand it and would dissolve after a while. The two of them looked carefully at the cold and damp open ground in front of them. Naturally, he also saw the small mountain of spatial rings at a glance. Hiss! When Xingtian gasped. So many! Then, he immediately circulated his energy and consumed a detoxification pill to expel the poison. Just now, he had sucked in a lot of the poison with his breath. It seemed that during this period of time, there were many people who were unwilling to be left out. Both of their expressions became increasingly solemn. Zhuoshaoduo must be here. On this point, there was no need to doubt. With so many spatial rings, how could Zhuoshaoduo leave? This money grubber. The only difference was what kind of form they existed in. The first one had already turned into a puddle of pus and was left here. The second one was hiding somewhere healthy. Based on their understanding of Zhuoshaoduo's craftiness, the second possibility was more likely. This brat's desire to amass wealth would never die. Moreover, he was crafty and cunning. How could he fall so easily? The thick fog continued to spread and howl. Gradually, it became denser than when they first arrived. Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian focused their eyes and watched attentively. They were afraid that they would miss the slightest bit and be unable to save in time. The other side was still quiet, as if there was nothing that, however, about 10 minutes later, when Xingtian gritted his teeth. Look over there, next to the pile of rings. Is there something moving? Yi Changqing hurriedly looked over. He saw that under the shiny pile of rings, there was actually a thin red thread. Yes, it was very thin. Just as he was about to grab another one, he started to drag it back just like before, and in the end, it still reached the small pile of rings. Snap. The thread broke again. Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian were confused. They couldn't understand the ins and outs of this operation. This seemed to be the work of that centipede? But what was this for? Then, they saw the small pile of rings suddenly fly up into the air and fly back to their original positions. They landed on the large pile of rings that was more than 100 meters away. They fell with a crash. Then, a thread sneakily appeared once again and extended all the way to the other side. When Xingtian and Yi Changqing looked at each other, their faces were full of confusion, disbelief, and confusion. The two of them lay there and watched for a full 2 hours. Then, they came to a realization. Is this a game? When Xingtian looked at Yi Changqing with a broken face. Yi Changqing also had a broken face. He nodded with a twisted face. I think so. It should be. What the fuck? When Xingtian couldn't understand at all, there was no need to guess. There was no one else who was playing with Zhuoshaoduo. There was only that centipede queen. Zhuoshaoduo dragged it over, and then the centipede broke it. It dragged it over and broke it again. Then, when the number of rings was almost enough, the centipede queen moved it all back. Then, Zhuoshaoduo continued. And so did the centipede. Aren't you fucking bored? We were worried sick, but you were having so much fun playing with the centipede? Zhuoshaoduo said with snot and tears. I don't want to play with it. During the 2 hours of dragging, Zhuoshaoduo didn't come out empty-handed. He succeeded 3 times. 3 rings were dragged back to his home without being broken. What did that mean? Could it be that the centipede was paying him a salary? But this was something that they couldn't understand. They couldn't understand it. How did you do it? Not to mention when Xingtian and Yi Changqing. Even Zhuoshaoduo himself was confused and couldn't understand how he did it. How did I do it? Wu sha sha. Don't slaughter sheep. I really don't know. But the biggest problem now is that I can't leave even if I want to. This centipede won't let me go. It's true that I love making money, but I still cherish my life. I didn't want to play for a long time. It's too nerve-wracking. I'm on the verge of a mental breakdown. that just when both sides were confused and the centipede was the only one who was having fun, that another 4 people were quietly entering this area. They came from another direction and didn't notice Yi Changqing and the others. Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian didn't notice them either. Other than the fact that these 4 people were extremely careful, their cultivation levels were also very high. After the 4 of them came to a certain distance, they quietly lay down and began to discuss telepathically. "Boss, is this all the rings? Are we leaving after taking them?" "Yes. Don't you want Zhuxiao's reward? That's a lot of money." One of them smacked his lips. "Don't want it. Who would have thought that old man Yi Changqing would come here personally? Now that he's here, we don't have a chance to make a move. Back then, we fought a big battle. The 4 of us worked together for 3 days and 3 nights to trap him in the formation. We barely managed to break his heart. This guy must be very familiar with our attack methods. If we're recognized, we'll be hunted down by the whole country and become the enemy of the whole world." Yes, boss is right. That incident back then was indeed a thorn in our side. There's no other way. Friendship is friendship. Duty is duty. As long as we're not recognized, everything else is trivial. Although the reward is good, it's not necessary for us. Yes, our goal now should be this pile of rings in front of us. As long as we take these rings and leave, we'll still have a lot to gain. This trip won't be in vain. But this centipede isn't easy to deal with. Fortunately, it's not a life and death battle. It's just a few rings. This centipede shouldn't be so unforgiving. "Don't worry, boss. We'll leave after this." The 4 of them came to a decision, but they didn't act rashly. They waited quietly for an opportunity to make a move. At this moment, Zhuxiaoduo began to make ropes again. There was no rope on the other side. The Centipede King had no choice but to wait. From the first time it lacked rope and started to make ropes, it began to use its divine sense to watch Zhuxiaoduo, the big rat, unraveling a small furry object 7 or 8 meters underground. It pulled out threads bit by bit. The more it watched, the more it felt that the furry object was strange. It could actually pull out so many threads from it. It was such a big bundle. It was really good stuff. This furry thing, I really wanted that the Centipede King's eyes were shining as it concentrated. Chapter 577. Just as the Centipede Queen was fully focused on Zhuxiaoduo, a whistling sound broke through the air again. This time, the sound was shrill and rapid. 3 figures suddenly appeared in the air, followed by 3 rays of sword light that rose and flashed. The 3 rays of sword light were so powerful that they instantly turned into 3 golden dragons. They shook their heads and wagged their tails as they whizzed towards the giant centipede. When the 3 of them attacked, it was as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. Golden Dragon Sword. Yi Changqing, who was lying on the ground waiting on the other side, almost cried out in surprise. Golden Dragon Sword. It was actually the Golden Dragon Sword? Many years ago, when he went out to do something, he was besieged by these 4 people. At that time, the other party set up a formation in advance and trapped him in the formation. Then, the 4 of them entangled him and fought for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, both sides ended up with both sides suffering great losses. It was also from that time that his heart meridian was severely injured and his cultivation stopped progressing. Golden Dragon Sword, for dragons locking heart, heavenly pulse hand, and a palm strike on the dantian. That time, it could be said that the beginning of the decline of the hidden dragon realm from its peak. All these years, Yi Changqing had countless dreams in the middle of the night. He would always dream of the 4 golden dragons rolling up and down in the formation, and the sword light rushing left and right in the fierce battle. And that sudden palm strike that suppressed the dantian and shook the heart meridian. He clearly saw the palm strike. The fingers were white and slender. If he only looked at the fingers, he would almost think that it was a woman's delicate hand. The palm of that hand was very thick and very wide. On the outer edge of the little finger, there was a black dot. That was the nightmare that Yi Changqing hated. Now, He actually met it here. When enemies meet, they will see red. For a moment, Yi Changqing's breathing became rapid, and his eyes were almost spitting fire. If he did not suppress his anger, he would have fought. "What's wrong, boss?" When Xingtian sensed Yi Changqing's abnormality and immediately transmitted his voice. Back then, it was these 4 people who besieged me. Yi Changqing gritted his teeth and said word by word, as if his heart was about to bleed, "I won't be wrong. It's this golden dragon sword. It was after that battle that my heart was damaged. So it's these 4 people." When Xingtian's gaze instantly turned into a sharp sword, his battle intent surged, and his desire to fight was not any weaker than Yi Changqing's. "There's only 3 of them. There should be one more hiding in the dark, waiting to act. Their target should be that pile of space rings as well. With their strength, they are indeed the group with the highest chance of success." Yi Changqing said, "Let's not be in a hurry to make a move. Let's let them fight with the centipede for a while. Let's see how far they can go with the centipede queen and what kind of wishful thinking the person in hiding is planning." Understood. When Xingtian slowly gripped the hilt of the butcher's sword and said indifferently, "This time, we can't let these 4 bastards escape no matter what." Yi Changqing said indifferently, "Do you still see the crux of the matter? They should be thinking of leaving by now. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken the risk to snatch these rings. They must have seen me before and feared my existence, so they didn't dare to reveal their identities. Now that they're taking the risk to make a move, it's true that they want to make a move. It's also because we left in such a large scale previously that they thought we were far away and wouldn't see them take action this time." However, they didn't expect that there's heaven's will in the unseen world. The heavens also want us to see who our enemy is and present us with the opportunity to end this feud. Now, what we need to do the most is to see their faces clearly. Knowing who they are is enough. Selfishly, I even hope that they can escape unscathed from the centipede queen. If they die here, it'll be too easy for them. In the sky, 3 dragons circled around as sword lights and sword auras soared into the sky. The 3 of them were in the air as they fought against the enormous centipede queen. Although the 3 of them possessed astonishing strength, they were still suppressed by the centipede queen. 3 peak returnants, profound realm experts working together, and with their minds linked, they're still not a match for the centipede queen. When Xingtian said solemnly, "It seems that this centipede queen is at least at the Skysoar realm. Previously, it was holding back and didn't use its true strength at all. No wonder it's able to control its strength to such an extent. It's truly impressive." "Skysoar realm? I'm afraid it's not just that." Yi Changqing said, "My cultivation has been stagnant for so many years. However, these 3 have improved by too much. When the 3 of them work together, their strength has already surpassed the Skysoar realm. Furthermore, it's beyond the Skysoar realm in the ordinary sense. As for this centipede queen, it still hasn't used its full strength. Most of its attention is still focused elsewhere. Even if the 3 of them work together, they still won't be able to pose a threat to it." Yi Changqing said word by word, "Star beasts that have reached the king realm are relatively rare existences on the continent. However, each of them possesses extremely terrifying innate abilities. The 4 of them aren't here to kill the centipede queen, but purely to snatch the ring and leave after making a fortune." When Xingtian's eyes revealed a hint of shock. He really didn't expect that a mere centipede queen could be so powerful. "Don't be unconvinced. How many years have you cultivated?" Yi Changqing said, "As for this centipede queen, it's at least a 10,000-year-old monster. How old are you?" When Xingtian was immediately dumbfounded. For a long time, he didn't know how to answer. If this old man were to be placed outside, during the ancient times when the dynasties were contending for hegemony, he alone would be able to watch the rise and fall of 3 or 4 long-lived dynasties with a single glance. Yet now, he's actually being asked how old he is? Fuck, this is simply unreasonable. It's as if you're much older than me. Yes, you are indeed much older than me. Why don't you be the boss? You have a final say. I can't be bothered with you. Half of the centipede queen's body was coiled up on the ground, while the other half was propped up in the air. Its 300 to 400 legs were like 300 to 400 long whips and sharp swords, brandishing them in different directions and in different trajectories. They were disorderly and orderly, without the slightest bit of uneasiness or disorder. As for the two tentacles that were several hundred meters long, they didn't move at all. The poisonous fog that surged in its mouth was also just a normal breathing pattern. It didn't have any intention of erupting. Boom, boom, boomed up the sounds caused by the continuous battle were earth-shattering, earth-shattering, and earth-shattering. Another long roar was heard. Sword Chi suddenly rang out rapidly. The three of them shouted at the same time. 3 golden dragons shook their heads and wagged their tails, rushing straight into the sky. Then, they circled in the air for a while, converging to form an even bigger and more majestic golden dragon, majestically descending. It was as if it was going to split the heavens and destroy the earth. The moment it was about to fall from 1,000 feet in the air, with a loud boom, the sword Chi suddenly exploded. The centipede queen let out a strange roar. Its entire body suddenly stood upright, its huge body twisting and turning in the air. Clang, clang, clanged that countless streaks of sword Chi fell on the centipede queen's legs and body. That in this round of confrontation, a total of 7 to 8 centipede queen's legs crashed to the ground, all of them cut off by the sword Chi. The centipede queen roared into the sky, its entire body trembling. At this moment, it was actually the first to be injured. It was angry, despicable ants. At this delicate moment, that a ghostly figure quietly flashed and appeared in the open space. It swept across 2,000 meters at lightning speed, reaching out its hand and grabbing at the pile of rings on the ground. Squeak! The centipede queen let out a strange, evil cry. Its body suddenly spun, and puff, 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 puff. 8 heads suddenly appeared. This was the centipede queen's true form. Its true form. 9-headed centipede. One of the heads had 300 legs, 2 long feelers, and blocked the fourth person's path. When it opened its mouth, an unprecedentedly dense, almost solid, poisonous fog was spat out. At the same time, 2 extremely bright lights suddenly flashed in its eyes. With a loud boom, the fourth person who suddenly appeared grunted, and his entire body directly dissipated, leaving behind a mouthful of blood in the air. Yi Changqing's gaze turned cold. He recognized that the person who suddenly appeared just now had used the blood essence substitution technique. It was an extremely obscure secret technique, using a mouthful of blood essence to create a substitute. When one was in danger, they could substitute for death. It could be said to be a very practical secret technique. It was obvious that the person had long been on guard against the centipede queen's full strength. His entire body shot straight into the sky like a faint mist and then charged diagonally for 2,000 meters. However, on the ground, a golden dragon formed by awe-inspiring sword Chi shook its head and wagged its tail as it met the centipede queen. Puff! One of the centipede queen's legs was chopped off by the golden dragon's sword. It fell with a loud boom, and coincidentally, it smashed into the small pile of spatial rings. The centipede queen became more and more furious. It had never imagined that it would be injured by the opponent after revealing its true form. It was simply a great humiliation. 9 heads, 9 halves of 9 bodies split into 9 directions and attacked wildly. The golden dragon sword whistled continuously and still did not retreat and attacked head-on. For a moment, the fight between the two sides was exceptionally dazzling and brilliant. The centipede queen let out a shrill cry and directly pulled up the remaining half of its body from the ground, forcefully blocking the golden dragon sword and madly attacking. The ghostly figure suddenly condensed in the air and rushed down like a flickering light and reached out his hand to grab. He had already seen the location of the pile of space rings and was confident that he would not make any mistakes. However, this determined grab of his had grabbed empty air. He grabbed a handful of soil and came up. The figure was instantly astonished. Where are the rings? The ground was empty. The pile of rings was gone. Not only were the 130 rings gone, even the broken centipede queen's legs that were 17 to 18 meters long had disappeared. It had disappeared into thin air, without a trace. At this moment, the figure was completely dumbfounded. The centipede queen was there, and it was impossible to take it away. His three brothers were fighting, and it was impossible for them to come over. There was no one else at the scene. The pile of rings was still sparkling just a moment ago. But now, where did they go? This big hole in the ground. What exactly was going on? Requesting votes, monthly votes, recommendation votes, subscriptions. Chapter 578. Smack! Just as the figure was in a daze for a moment, a long tentacle seemed to break through the void as it viciously whipped the figure's back. The person screamed as his clothes were torn apart. The mask on his face suddenly shattered under the great force, revealing a thin face. Although this person had a high cultivation and practiced the secret technique of blood essence substitute, it was only a substitute. Moreover, it had been shattered before. How could it not be affected? Now that the ring was gone, he was shocked when he should not have been shocked and hesitant. He did not dodge the furious attack of the centipede queen. He was severely injured in one move. The man's face was distorted, and he spat out mouthfuls of blood. In just a few seconds, many parts of his body had begun to turn green. Obviously, not only was he seriously injured, he was also poisoned. The centipede's tentacle contained an unusually strong poison. When it whipped the body, it tore open the skin and flesh. It was even more violent than the poisonous fog it spat out. Although the man immediately chewed the antidote, there were no signs of the poison spreading. He could only vomit blood while his figure flashed madly to avoid the attacks. He shouted, "Go!" His body flashed and disappeared into thin air. Then he was already high up in the sky. The centipede queen's attacks were like mountains and seas, but they all missed. It was obvious how strong he was. Want to go? Just as when Xingtian was about to rush out, he realized that Yi Changqing had not moved at all. He was just lying there in a daze. His face was filled with disappointment, and the anger from before was nowhere to be seen. Should we chase? Let's go. When Xingtian said anxiously, "This is a heaven-sent opportunity. The four of them are seriously injured and poisoned. This is the best time to deal with them. Don't be soft-hearted. This kind of opportunity will not come again. Don't chase." Yi Changqing's mind cleared, and he quickly recovered. He said in a low voice, "Our main purpose is to protect Zhuo. Even if we can take advantage of their perilous state and kill them in a big battle, only one of us can come back alive in the face of their dying counterattack. As for the one that came back, he's probably on his last breath. Without the two of us, we won't be able to protect Xiaoduo." The strange expression on Yi Changqing's face still hadn't disappeared. He said, "Since we already know the identities of the four of them, this matter will be easy to handle. It won't be that troublesome." "Who are they?" When Xingtian asked in surprise. "It's the four swords of the way of the king." Yi Changqing's face was filled with an indescribable sense of loss, pain, and sadness. "Four swords of the way of the king?" When Xingtian was shocked. "It's them? Aren't they? The four consecrators of the king of the Central Plains?" Yi Changqing nodded silently. How could it be them? Could it be that this incident back then actually had something to do with the king of the Central Plains? When Xingtian's eyes widened in shock. "If I remember correctly, these four people and you seem to be." When Xingtian hurriedly shut his mouth, but the anger in his eyes became more and more intense. Yi Changqing's expression became even more gloomy. These four people were quite close to him. In recent years, they had often interacted with each other. Moreover, they had been concerned about his injuries many times and had searched for the best quality jade of astral souls for him many times. However, Yi Changqing had never imagined that these four old friends who seemed to be wholeheartedly treating his injuries were actually the culprits who had caused his serious injuries back then. Yi Changqing sighed softly. "Do you still remember that old Qing said that he had tracked someone to the king of the Central Plains mansion, but the king of the Central Plains suddenly appeared and indiscriminately slashed him with his sword?" Wen Xingtian took a deep breath. I understand now. I understand everything now. Everything has been linked together. The king of the Central Plains mansion, Yi Chongqing said solemnly, behind this matter. There are too many implications. We have to take the long view. This is really not something that we can decide on a whim. We have to be careful and hit the nail on the head. Otherwise, we'd rather not do anything. At this moment, the battle in the air became even more intense. The centipede had completely lost control of its emotions. Poisonous fog sprayed out like sharp swords and claws, spreading without limit. Just now, this person's doppelganger attracted its attention, and the real body suddenly went down to grab it. It was so unexpected that it couldn't stop him. The most direct result of this was that all my toys were snatched away. Moreover, even the little mouse below was scared away. The centipede queen was furious. This bastard deserved to die. He even snatched away one of my broken legs. This is too much. Do you think I'm so easy to bully? You 4 human ants must die. Ah! The centipede queen's anger had reached its peak. I've waited here for thousands of years and finally found something to play with. I was having fun, but it was ruined by you ants. Damned ants. The centipede queen was now using all its ultimate moves. Its 9 heads were extremely flamboyant. Its 3,000 legs were sharp swords in the air, and its 18 tentacles were attacking in all directions. Its huge body was half cloud and half mist. Want to leave? How could it be so easy? As the 9 heads appeared, they sprayed out poisonous fog at the same time. Whether it was the quantity or quality of the poisonous fog, it soared rapidly that the 18 eyes on the 9 heads flickered. Every time they lit up, there would be 2 bright beams of light shooting out. These 2 beams of light were the centipede queen's natural magical powers. Once it hit one's body directly, one's physical body would melt immediately. There was no luck. The reason why it didn't use it previously was that once it closed its eyes, it would immediately lose its sight and consume a considerable amount of demonic essence. Of course, this was because the centipede queen's natural magical powers had yet to be fully awakened. It didn't want to use it casually, but at this moment, the furious centipede queen used all its extreme moves and all the moves it shouldn't use. It wanted to kill these 4 ants as soon as possible and avenge the hatred in its heart. Dang, dang, dang that the 4 swords of the way of the monarch went from resisting the centipede's attacks to dodging pathetically. At the beginning, the 4 swords of the way of the monarch were forcefully clashing against the centipede's attacks. But now, the 4 swords of the way of the monarch were forced to dodge pathetically. Not to mention that the centipede queen was now in a state of desperation. Every attack was powerful and heavy, and it used all its strength. And the 4 people on the opposite side, in addition to fighting the enemy, they also had to protect their heart meridians and expel the poison. How could they last for long? Now they were already in a sorry state. Right at this moment, the leader of the 4 roared, Golden Dragon, return to your positions. After one move, retreat immediately as one. The 4 of them roared at the same time and rushed into the air. The centipede queen chased closely and directly chased after them. Though at the beginning of the battle, Swishaoduo, who was underground, was dizzy from the aftermath of the impact and almost fainted. But this change also made Swishaoduo realize that this was an opportunity. The ultimate goal of the people above was undoubtedly the ring. But in this aspect, no one could possibly have a bigger advantage than me, right? I have been here with Brother Centipede for 3 days and 4 nights. There is affection, friendship, and passion between us. I believe that if Brother Centipede could choose for himself, he would be more willing to give it to me than to you. In order to show his closeness to the Centipede Queen, Swishaoduo even changed the way he addressed the Centipede Queen and called it Brother Centipede. Although this was what he thought, Swishaoduo still did not dare to act rashly. This was a matter of life and death. He had to be cautious, no matter how cautious he was. That's my life at stake. Until the moment when the hidden enemy attacked for the first time, Swishaoduo immediately knew that the opportunity had come. He went all out at the speed of lightning and dug the hole dozens of meters forward in an instant. This position was about 20 meters below the pile of rings. Then, he returned to the state of silence and motionlessness. As expected, he did not succeed on the first try. This was a triple failure. Not only did Zhuoxiaoduo predict that it would not succeed, but the Centipede Queen was also sure that the enemy would not succeed. After breaking the enemy's attack, the hidden enemy also predicted that he would not succeed. His action was originally to pave the way for the second attack after using the secret technique of blood essence substitute. Zhuoxiaoduo continued to wait patiently for the right opportunity to come. The second opportunity came as expected. The figure suddenly appeared and attacked again. The wind howled and shook the void. At this moment, Zhuoxiaoduo immediately attacked, causing the entire ground around the target to collapse. Together with the dozens of cubic meters of soil, the 130 space rings on it, and the 17 to 18 meter long centipede leg that had coincidentally fallen, they were all absorbed by Zhuoxiaoduo into the Tower of Annihilation. At the same time, Zhuoxiaoduo's body suddenly plummeted downwards. He had already dug a few thousand meters deep hole, but now he was falling downwards at a rapid speed. However, in the midst of the fierce battle and the crazy howling, this little change was almost silent and undetectable by anyone. Moreover, the big hand that fell from the sky carried with it an indomitable force. As a result, the hand that fell from the sky and the centipede saw that the ground immediately caved in when the hand fell. This hand completely had the power to make the ground collapse. The Centipede Queen was furious. This guy who fell from the sky actually took away my toy and one of my legs. How abominable! Then, the Centipede Queen went crazy, lost control, and went on a rampage. Ah! I'm so angry. Only the Shadow, the last person from the four swords of the Way of the King, knew in his heart that he didn't get anything. The others, whether it was when Xing Tian, Yi Chongqing, the Centipede Queen, or even the other three people from the four swords of the Way of the King, all knew clearly that it was him. It was him who took away the ring and the centipede leg. He was the one who benefited the most. Zhuoxiaoduo quickly moved underground and left this troublesome place as fast as he could. This time, he was really satisfied. The experts of the Earth realm were all waiting for him. With his small arms and legs, he didn't want to get involved. As for the remaining broken centipede legs, so what a pity, but I'll give them to you. I don't want them anymore. Zhuoxiaoduo felt somewhat regretful. There were so many broken centipede legs. These were the legs of a demon king. How much were they worth? But I decided that I didn't want it. No one else can be as decisive as me. Chapter 579. Zhuoxiaoduo, who was out of danger, was in an extremely good mood. Long. Let me tell you, perseverance will bring you rewards. For example, I persevered for 3 days and 4 nights this time. What's the final result? Originally, I only wanted the first 76 rings, but what about now? A total of 211 space rings. This is more than just 2 sleeves of gold. This is 2 sleeves of gold. Zhuoxiaoduo was in an extremely good mood. He couldn't help bragging and bragging. A big bowl of expired and poisonous chicken soup was fed to Xiao Long in an instant. Not to mention the centipede's leg. Zhuoxiaoduo laughed and showed off to Xiao Long. What do you think? Do you like it? Is it perfect? Xiao Long pretended not to hear him. Why are you so excited? Show off my ass. Why are you showing off in front of me? I don't have any interest in these things, okay? The only thing that can interest me is Didi. Long. Do you think it's possible for both sides to suffer in the end? Zhuoxiaoduo's imagination was running wild. If we turn back and take the rings of these 4 people, then cut the giant centipede into pieces and bring it back to eat. Of course, we can also dig up the dragon soul ginseng on the way. That would be the real perfection, right? Zhuoxiaoduo's eyes were full of sparkling light. Xiao Long said, Boss, you'd better go back to the tower and sleep. It's not good to be too full of yourself. It's easy to blow up. He secretly rolled his eyes. You'll have everything if you sleep. Suffer in the end? You're dreaming. These people might be able to cause a certain degree of damage to the centipede, but to say that both sides would suffer in the end. Xiaolong thought that he was thinking too much. At this moment, Xiaolong's heart was full of contempt and disdain. If you really think so, then why are you running? And you don't even look back when you run at what happened to the friendship you said with Brother Centipede just now? Bah, it's all an excuse to accumulate wealth. However, half of Zhuo Xiao's fantasy came true. He had imagined that both sides would suffer great losses, and then he would reap the benefits. However, the reality was that one side had suffered a crushing defeat. The four swords of the way of the monarchs and the others executed their strongest attacks, intending to create an opening. Then, the four of them simultaneously executed man and sword as one, converging in one place. Together, they executed a joint attack technique. Riding on their swords, they soared into the sky, retreating unscathed. However, just as the sword was about to take shape and soar into the sky, the angered centipede also soared into the sky. It was as fast as lightning, and its 9 heads spat out ink like poisonous water. A large area of poisonous water engulfed the combined 4 swords of the path of the monarch. The dazzling imperial sword instantly turned into Briquette imperial sword. At the same time, the centipede king let out a loud roar. Its 4 legs and 4 claws slammed into the sphere of light. Mournful screams shook the sky at the same time. It was the 4 swords of the path of the monarchs who were screaming, but it was also the centipede king who was screaming, because the 4 legs that it had extended into the sphere of light had been crushed at the same time as it had heavily injured the other party. In the end, the 4 swords converged and attacked together. Although it was only a single attack, it was equivalent to the strength of the 4 people being multiplied by 4 times, resulting in the most extreme explosive power. This power had already surpassed the limit that the centipede queen could withstand. Although it heavily injured the 4 people, it also lost 4 of its claws. However, the 4 swords of the path of the monarchs were even worse. Half of the centipede's claws were hanging on each of their bodies. The front part of the claws had already penetrated deep into their bodies. The venom that could melt gold and iron was wreaking havoc in their bodies. The 4 of them screamed, but they didn't dare to stay for a moment. Borrowing the remaining momentum of the converging swords, they hurriedly flew away and disappeared in a flash. This result could be considered to have achieved their original intention. However, the price was extremely huge. For a moment, blood rain poured down from the sky. Most of the blood rain flowed out from the wounds of the centipede king's 4 broken legs. Below, wherever the blood dripped, that place would be corroded into a cloud of smoke. This was enough to show the intensity of the poison. It was a shocking sight. The centipede king fell to the ground. For some reason, the wounds immediately stopped bleeding. Then, after a few minutes, swoosh, 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 that the broken legs grew out from the body again, as if they were never injured. However, the centipede king's heavy breathing also showed that all of this was not without a price. Its huge body crouched down again, and slowly crawled over to the place where the more than 100 rings had originally been. Looking at this big hole, the centipede king reluctantly stuck its head out to take a look. It was indeed gone. It was indeed taken away by that hateful bastard. The centipede king shook its head sadly. It crawled forward a bit more, and crawled to the place where the little mouse was making the rope. It stuck its head out to take a look, and the little mouse was indeed gone. Sigh, such a fun little toy, and it was gone in such a short time. What a disappointment. How good would it be if I could play with it for another 8 to 10 days? There are still so many positions that I haven't tried yet. Sigh, how lonely. The centipede king desolately crawled back to the mountain wall again, and leaned against the mountain wall, looking very sad. It was not easy to find something fun to play with. Later on, I will carefully touch it to see if it has gone far. But now, I definitely can't go. Inside the mountain wall, the dragon soul ginseng was about to be cooked. It was not until the centipede king completely stopped and went to the other side that Yi Changqing and when Xing Tian finally let out a sigh of relief. It was so close. When Xingtian grimaced in pain. If I had gone out with Yi then, I would have been dead by now, right? My space ring would also have fallen into that pile. The 4 swords of the Way of the King have been badly injured this time. They have less than 10% of their strength left. Yi Changqing said lightly, our main goal is to find Zhuo. But if we find the 4 swords of the Way of the King, we can also kill them directly. He said word by word, they already have the poison of the heavenly centipede in their bodies. They won't dare to ride their swords for a long time. They will definitely find a secret place to get rid of the poison in the shortest amount of time. If there is a slight delay, these 4 people will explode with the poison and die without a complete corpse. The Centipede King's final attack has destined that the 4 of them will not be able to return to Fenghai directly. After being seriously injured, they won't have the strength and time to do so. Zhuo must have left this time. With the help of this battle, he has been completely liberated. When Xingtian said, I reckon that it was this miser who wanted to steal the ring, but was restrained by the Centipede King and didn't let him go. Looking at the situation just now, it was clearly the Centipede King who was playing with Zhuo. This kid's luck is really hard to match. He can even escape and scathe like this. I have to admit, when he said this sentence, even when Xingtian himself felt that it was inconceivable. What kind of idiot could come up with this inference? But this inference seems to be coming from me that a monster king caught Zhuo and made him play with it in all kinds of positions. That what kind of idiot is this? However, it was obvious that he was not the only idiot now. Yi Changqing also nodded repeatedly, yes. After the final battle, the Centipede King even crawled over to take a look. If it wasn't for the fact that it didn't want to hurt him, it would have directly clawed him out. It actually had feelings for him after playing with him. But after taking a look, the Centipede King left. Its attitude was very lonely. Obviously, that kid is no longer there. With that kid's brain, he would be a real idiot if he still waited in the same place with such a heaven-sent opportunity. Let's go. Let's also retreat. Pay attention to the search along the way and see where this kid went. Yi Changqing said angrily, I gave him so many things, but other than using landmines, he didn't use anything else. I really want to. His expression was ferocious. If Zhuo was next to him, he would at least beat him until his face swelled up. He was so angry. According to the original tunnel, maybe he went that way. When Xingtian and Yi Changqing searched along the way, the direction they went almost coincided with the original tunnel that Zhuo had dug. But why did Zhuo always take the same old path? This lazy guy who did not take the usual path had already turned halfway. Now he did not even know where he went or where he was. Zhuo kept moving forward, but he had a goal in mind. His target was the location of the soul-tempering cinnabar fruit that Xiao Long had found earlier. Since he had found it, of course, he had to dig it out first. He had to dig it out first to be safe. However, there was no hurry. He was really a little weak now that Zhuo casually placed the space-destroying pagoda and immediately went in. It had to be said that after 3 days and 4 nights of playing the game of fishing rings with the centipede, Zhuo's control of True Spirit had improved greatly. Every time, he was fully focused and only used a little bit of the thin line to hook a ring more than 100 meters away. That this required a lot of True Spirit, and it was also very meticulous and small. If a little bit was not in place, it would be impossible to hook it up. And Zhuo had done this process thousands of times. Even with Zhuo's Dantian spiritual chi storage, it had already been squandered away by him. At this moment, he was running out of True Spirit. He held the dragon blood flying dagger in one hand and kept replenishing it. Until now, the energy of the dragon blood flying dagger had been completely absorbed by him. I need to recharge it again. Zhuo was disappointed. With the improvement of his cultivation, the energy storage of the dragon blood flying dagger was getting less and less effective. It was really useless. If Chief Nin knew about his thoughts, he would probably be slapped. Other people could use it all the way to the God reigning realm. It was a rare item. Why is it that the embryonic breathing realm is not enough for you? If you are so capable, why don't you go to heaven? Bah, you are a freak. What does it have to do with the dragon blood flying dagger? Moreover, the energy storage of a flying dagger was only depleted after you absorbed it for 3 days and 3 nights. You still have the nerve to say that it is not enough? Why are you so arrogant? What else do you want? Chapter 580. Of course, Zhuo didn't want to do anything. To him, 3 days and 3 nights was nothing. It would be great if the dragon blood flying dagger could be used for 8 to 10 years. Of course, it would be even better if it could be used for 100 to 80 years. Well, as long as one was human, they would think twice. A certain someone was even greedier than ordinary people. It was reasonable for him to be so shameless. It wasn't strange at all. Now, in the entire Starry Mountain range, there was probably only one person who wasn't anxious, and that was Zhuo. There were thousands of people outside. Each one of them was burning with anxiety, their eyes wide open. Where did Zhuo go? Where did he go? Previously, many people had noticed the earth-shattering battle in Centipede Valley. They had seen it from afar, but very few people went to watch the battle. A battle of that level wasn't something that ordinary people could watch. A battle of life and death between such experts wasn't something that outsiders were usually allowed to watch. Watch the battle? What do you want to do? Do you want to see our trump cards? Or do you want to take advantage of us? Once something like this happened, most of the time, both sides would work together to kill the bystanders first. As long as they were discovered, it was almost inevitable. Therefore, watching the battle was basically impossible. Well, just like Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian, they had arrived early by chance and were able to watch the battle without being discovered by either side. This was an unexpected coincidence that was extremely difficult to replicate. Moreover, the others also understood another thing. The goal of the two sides wasn't Zhuo. One side was for the pile of spatial rings and to make a fortune. On the other hand, they wanted to prevent the other side from getting the spatial rings. They also wanted to add the spatial rings of these 4 people to the pile. But Zhuo had nothing to do with either side. With Zhuo's shallow ability, how could he get involved in such an extreme battle? Since their goals weren't in conflict, why risk their lives to watch the battle? When the battle came to an end, there were still people who went over, thinking about the spatial rings from before. However, they all returned in disappointment. There was not a single spatial ring left. They should have been taken away by that group of super experts just now. In fact, these people should be rejoicing. If the rings were still there, then their lives would be left here as well. In the beginning, there were 76 spatial rings, but Zhuo ended up with 211. In other words, out of the original 76 rings, he had caught another 135 scapegoats. What a frightening ratio. These 135 people had died so unjustly, so easily, it took Zhuo 2 hours to fully recover his cultivation. As usual, he first absorbed the heat emitted by the heart of the ardent sun in his space. Then, he used the high-grade spiritual jade to cultivate and recover. After he had fully recovered, Zhuo could faintly feel that his own yuan qi seemed to have undergone some subtle changes. This did not seem to be a change, but his control over his own yuan qi had become smoother. Could it be that the interaction with this centipede was equivalent to training me? If I want to improve my control in the future, should I look for this centipede again? This thought only flashed through Zhuo's mind for a moment. Then, he immediately suppressed it. Again? Even if you beat me to death, I won't do it again. This was simply playing with the Grim Reaper. If he was not careful, he would die. No, if the other party was unhappy, he would lose his life. It would be an extreme way to die, without a complete corpse, and without leaving a trace. Looking at the long centipede leg in the space again, Zhuo could not help but feel his teeth ache. It was as thick as a watermelon. Even the thinnest part was as thick as his buttocks. It was covered with dense black fur. Just by placing such a leg here, he could actually feel a monstrous demonic aura. However, Zhuo was thinking, Long, do you think this thing is delicious? Zhuo asked. Long sweated. Was it delicious? This was the leg of a demon king. How could it not be delicious? But this thing was poisonous. It was highly toxic. It was so toxic that it was almost tangible. How are you going to eat it? How do you get rid of the poison? The meat is not poisonous. In fact, it's definitely very nutritious. It's just that the outer skin and the black fur are all poisonous. But this is very hard. Xiaolong was halfway through his sentence. He wisely stopped and did not continue. Hard. That was for others. However, for Zhuo, it was not a problem at all. This guy was fully equipped with divine artifacts. It was a top-notch equipment configuration. The so-called hard part was really not a problem for him. Let's grill it first. Zhuo smiled and placed the centipede leg near the heart of the sun. With a look of satisfaction, he said, "With this thing by my side, it's like bringing a convenient oven with me. Grilling is the most convenient." Grilling? Xiaolong could only sigh. Comparisons were odious. Look at Zhuo. He used the unique void extinguishing pagoda that could accelerate the flow of time to store things. There was even a heart of the ardent sun inside to be used as a barbecue tool, and the ingredient was the leg of a star beast king. One could imagine that after eating this leg, his chi of true core strength would definitely experience another surge. As for the 222 interspatial rings that Zhuo had seized, they were all placed neatly in 10 rows near the heart of the sun by Zhuo. It was a spectacular sight. This number is really fucking impressive. Zhuo was very dissatisfied. It would have been fine if it was 233. Why did you have to give me 222? I really want to throw one away. Although he said that he would definitely not throw it away. Not to mention 22222. Even if it was 22,222, Zhuo would at most say, "Am I that stupid?" But he would definitely not throw one away. Zhuo was not in a hurry to check the spoils of war inside. Firstly, there was no need. They were all his now. What was there to be anxious about? Secondly, the owners of these rings were all top experts. Even if they were all dead now, the divine consciousness attached to the rings had not completely dissipated. After all, these were rings that had recognized their owners. It would not be strange if they treated them with more care and care. If Zhuo forcefully dispelled them now, he might have to expend a lot of spiritual energy. Moreover, with his current divine consciousness, he definitely could not dispel all of them. Moreover, there will definitely be new additions. No rush, no rush. If he placed it next to the heart of the sun and grilled it now, even if he could not get rid of the divine consciousness, it would slowly dissipate over time. Zhuo sincerely expressed that he was not in a hurry. He was prepared to check again in 10 days. Of course, he would not be idle during these 10 days. I have to strive to increase the number of interspatial rings to 1,000? 500 is a number that I can barely accept. After a while, Zhuo, who felt that even his physical strength had recovered, carefully exited the space-destroying tower and walked forward sneakily. Xiaolong went back and forth to check the current situation. Zhuo tiptoed behind him. The two brothers were in cahoots and cooperated very well. Under Xiaolong's investigation, Zhuo encountered 2 teams of high-level infant transformation bounty hunters. After Xiaolong made sure that there was no one around, Zhuo took out his training hammer and hammered wildly. He successfully obtained 7 interspatial rings. 229. Yes, he also obtained 4 drops of fate points. He rewarded Xiaolong with 1 drop on the spot. Xiaolong almost wanted to prostrate himself on the ground and call him brother. He was so excited, so grateful. Of course, after eating it, he felt so good that along the way, he quickly approached the area where the soul-tempering vermilion fruit was. The soul-tempering vermilion fruit was the key to Vice Principal Lu's recovery. In this area, there seemed to be more meteors falling. The pieces were piled up and almost formed a mountain. Zhuo felt that there were quite a few pieces that were in good shape. They should be able to produce high-quality Astral Souls Jade. But at this time, he did not have the time to dig them up. He did not even have the time to cut them with his sword. He simply swallowed them whole and stored them in his interspatial ring. He could use them to open a shop for his father when he returned, that now that I, as with Xiao Duo, am a high-level cultivator, I don't need them. But when I visit home, I will fill up a shop for my father. Seeing that there was no one around, as with Xiao Duo used the same trick again. He directly dug out a piece of land under a big tree. Then he quickly drilled down. The Flaming Sun Sutra burned a hole in the ground and restored the ground. In short, he was very familiar with the way. Using the same trick, he dug all the way down. It had to be said that after going through Centipede Valley, as with Xiaoduo's cultivation, control, spiritual sense sensitivity, and even digging skills had improved a lot. Now, digging all the way down was simply too easy. Xiaolong promptly reminded him, "Boss, the soul-tempering vermilion fruit is not a low-level heavenly treasure. Logically speaking, this kind of heavenly treasure should have a guardian spirit beast. Although we haven't found any clues yet, it's better to be careful." Zhuo Xiaoduo was shocked. What? A guardian spirit beast? Perhaps the shadow of the Centipede Queen was too strong. He instinctively thought in his heart, it can't be at the level of a demon king, right? It's unlikely to be at the level of a demon king. It's very strange. Why can't I find a guardian spirit beast? Xiaolong was very puzzled by this. It was impossible that there was no guardian spirit beast. But now, there was no guardian spirit beast. No matter how he investigated, there was no guardian spirit beast. That this was very strange. Just as Xiaolong was puzzled, he suddenly felt a faint movement underground. It's coming! Zhuo Xiaoduo spread out his divine sense and was immediately shocked. He saw a huge creature slowly swimming towards him underground. Although he could only see it roughly, the spirit beast was at least 10 meters long. Although it was moving underground, it was like a snake moving on the surface. It moved quickly and without any obstruction. What is this thing? Xiaolong was also amazed. My God, boss, there's actually such a huge earthworm in this world. No wonder I didn't find it. Earthworm? Zhuo Xiaoduo was shocked, but this time it was a different kind of shock. This trip had really opened his eyes. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.